Hello, my dear brothers. I've decided to start uploading new story series on my 3 new channels even before they reach 1,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it if you could stop by, subscribe, and support them. Thank you all so much for being here with me. Love you guys. Soaring Bear, fuck off. If you want to die, just step up. You and Clark are a pair of pig-brained idiots. If you've got the guts, have him come out and confront me. Yuanju, Bear, watch your mouth. We'll handle this matter. Calm down. Soaring Bear, I just called you pig-brained, and the pig immediately jumps out to claim the title. Shut up and tell Clark to come out and talk to me. It's total chaos. The alien race's chat channel has completely exploded. As peaceful as it was a few days ago, it's exactly that chaotic now. Just 2 hours ago, they were eagerly discussing slitting humanity's throats, dreaming of dominating the seas. Yet, just half an hour after 9 o'clock, the whole lot of them are like ants on a hot pan. Demon Sue, the man they were absolutely certain was dead, suddenly appeared and dropped a bombshell that threatened the lives of every single alien race. A sense of unease spread like fog, quietly enveloping every single one of their minds. And their first reaction was to blow up the World Channel. Long Xing, 9.6 points. Higher than Clark on February 9th. Very strong. Soaring Bear, 10.8 points. The strongest of all the alien races I've ever seen. Although each race's strength varies, the Snow Bears are powerful enough to rival the royal families. Right now, he's cursing so hard that the royal families are choking on their own rage. The atmosphere is getting hotter by the minute. An undercurrent of backlash is quietly rising in the World Channel. Didn't they say Suemo was dead? If it weren't for his warning, we might have been crushed under the waterfall by now. The royal families are a bunch of useless trash. Seeing Soaring Bear single-handedly taking on 5 in this war of words, I turned to look at Connie, who was quietly observing alongside me. On her lioness face, just as I expected, was an "I know exactly what you're thinking" kind of smile. "Master, do you need me to add some fuel to the fire?" Connie tilted her head, her voice as sweet as cotton candy. Using a cute face and an innocent voice to backstab the entire alien alliance, she truly is an S-class biological weapon. Compared to before, ever since she got promoted and gained more authority, Connie's moves have become even bolder. And this exact style of hers made me burst out laughing, shaking my chair. Do you even have to ask? Burn them down. Connie caught my vibe, a cunning smile appearing on her lioness face as her hands began typing at lightning speed. Sitting in the control cabin, a thought suddenly flashed through my mind, like a lightning bolt connecting the present and the future. A logical chain of data gradually formed. Ultimately, the chaos in the alien chat channel is just a reflection of their collapsing morale. It's like victims of a pyramid scheme. Even when the ringleader is arrested, they still stubbornly scream, "I'm not wrong." No matter how stupid or delusional they are, just looking at the flame war between Long Xing and Soaring Bear, anyone can see the harsh truth behind the noisy facade. I am not dead. Demon Sue, the man who can slay gods, is still very much alive. Not only am I not dead, but I'm doing great. I have more than enough strength to fight. And so, the established truth that the alien races had been preaching for over 10 days was crushed by me in broad daylight. And the consequence can be summed up in one word. Explosion. For the 5 great royal families, who are standing right in the eye of the storm, this is an extremely severe crisis of faith. If they don't handle this well, their entire backup plan will collapse. The guys who said Demon Sue was definitely dead? He's sitting right there, sipping tea and shaking his leg. So, are your subsequent plans to exterminate humanity even reliable? No one has dared to ask it directly yet, but I know very well that the moment a single alien opens their mouth, the 5 great royal families, if they want to continue their plan, will only have one path left. They'll be forced to ride the tiger and play the act to the end. Not only do they have to do it, but they have to do it loudly and beautifully, to show all the alien races that they have a plan, they've made their move, and they are taking real action. Even if it ends in failure, even if I survive, they will still save face, and the plan can continue under the guise of the greater good. The future truly is fascinating. I used to think the alien races came to attack because they were incited out of hatred. But looking back now, it was my own reveal that forced them to attack me. How interesting. All the puzzle pieces are gradually coming together. In the beginning, high-level human spies colluded with the 5 great royal families. Seeing my growing influence, they felt threatened and suggested an assassination plan. They didn't expect it to succeed. It was just like throwing darts in the dark. If it works, great. If not, they lose nothing, as long as it ruins my reputation. The royal families at the time probably thought simply, let's just give it a try. The plan was feasible, and if successful, the fame and benefits would be massive. So, they nodded in agreement. The information leaked to a few dozen alien races near the basin. They started making moves, and that's where the problem erupted. When the plan was no longer in the hands of the royal families but spread to the smaller alien tribes, secrecy became a luxury. Out of greed and pride, they personally choked off all their escape routes with one legendary sentence. Demon Sue is dead. That very sentence pushed everyone into the abyss. From that moment on, everything spiraled out of anyone's control, including mine. But as time passed, unintentional actions and a series of coincidences piled up. They were no longer coincidences, but inevitabilities. Now, as long as Connie follows the plan and delivers one more psychological blow, the alien race's attack on the basin will be unavoidable. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but laugh. Honestly, I really want to see just how much health those 20,000 aliens actually have. Connie was still happily typing away in the World Channel. As for me, after piecing everything together, I also opened the control panel and connected to the channel. Ever since joining the Oreo tribe, becoming a divine priest, and betraying the alien alliance, Connie got one free name change. I didn't rush to see what she was hyping up, but first opened her status panel. Current world status, golden-haired Lion King, Connie, real name hidden. Current power index, 3.2. Current race, Oreo tribe. Just the position of divine priest made Connie jump straight from 0.03 to 3.2. That's absolutely insane. And that name, golden-haired Lion King, combined with a lion avatar that looks both hilarious and arrogant. It's the perfect setup for betraying the aliens and switching to humanity's side. Truly the style of the Ming cult. With a power index exceeding 3.0, Connie is now qualified to have a 4-character name. I nodded, suppressing a sarcastic smile, and switched to the World Channel. I immediately saw the golden-haired Lion King sweeping the verbal battlefield, soloing the entire mob. Golden-haired Lion King, you guys calling Soaring Bear foul-mouthed is one thing, but that piece of trash Long Xing barks every single day, and you still listen to him? Do they really think they can kill Sue the Devil just by saying so? It's obvious the royal families are setting us up. If they don't make a move to kill Sue the Devil, I'm not joining any damn plan. Flying Bear, well said. The Lion King is absolutely right. The royal families are just puppets. All they do is sit back and wait for a handout. Good at giving orders, but their actions are pure shit. Long Xing, Lion King, do you have a death wish? A mere 3.2 index, and you dare to bark? Chemo Lion King, I do have a death wish. So what? Does Sue the Devil have a death wish too? Because he looks perfectly fine to me. Do people just drop dead the moment you two say so? If that's how it works, let me announce this. My dad is dead. Chemo Lion King, and you too. You pig. Do you even deserve to be royalty? Don't let me catch you at sea, or I'll skin you alive. I'll crack open that pig head of yours to see if there's anything inside besides fat. The chat exploded instantly. Facing Long Xing and Yuan Zhu, Connie perfectly embodied the words arrogant and reckless. No one knew where this courage came from. But if you stood opposite Connie and remembered how she trembled at the mere mention of the royal families just a few days ago, you'd understand why the corners of my mouth curled up again. I sent a word of encouragement, telling Connie to keep raising hell, then disconnected. At this point, even without Connie's final push, the alien race's siege had lost its brakes. It was like a car with no brakes hurtling at 120 kilometers per hour. The only way to stop was to crash and burn. If you wanted to live, you just had to keep driving until you ran out of gas and prayed. But was there really any hope left? I stepped out of the cockpit. The rain had eased, and a faint rainbow appeared on the horizon. The military-grade BR-090 was placed in the captain's cabin on the 3rd floor. It was one of the best tactical shortwave radios of the 21st century, though it looked exactly like an 80s CD player on the outside. It cost 50% more than the standard models, but I bought it without hesitation for a very funny yet very real reason. It was easy to use. Before crossing over, after the golden age of radio in the 90s, amateur radio was gradually restricted. To play around with it, you needed a license and had to pass exams. Both the technical and legal barriers were high. Then cell phones became popular, taxis ditched their two-way radios, and everything shifted to chat apps. Following that trend, radio would have disappeared from civilian life in another 10 years. Now let's see. Communication channel, frequency 14 megahertz. Just turn it like this. After setting up the antenna, I went down to the third floor, sat on the makeshift wooden bed, put on the headphones, and started tuning. Radio connections require immense patience, especially when trying to catch someone else's signal. But I was different now. My mind was calm and steady. Little by little, following the instructions, I scanned the frequencies. Then, a clear voice rang out in the headphones. Weihe, 30 more kilometers, and it's your turn to drive. Take a break. Don't drive when you're sleepy. It was Pei Xiao's voice, calm, serious, but carrying a hint of concern. I smiled faintly. War might come, the alien races might swarm in, but the people by my side were still here. Captain, I'm fine. The upgraded Earth Tiger is amazing. Just sitting in the car keeps me wide awake. If you told me to drive another 300 to 500 kilometers, I'd agree in a heartbeat. Awesome. Weihe's voice was full of excitement, clearly very satisfied with the upgraded Earth Tiger. They were currently operating within a 100-kilometer radius of the basin, and since we were using the same type of radio, the signal was crystal clear. Hearing the soldiers hyping themselves up so enthusiastically, I shook my head helplessly and turned off the device. My dad probably never expected me to train these soldiers into such diehard loyalists. But thinking about it, it was a good thing. For modern people crossing over, dictatorship is a hard pill to swallow. Letting them get used to it gradually would make the transition to a centralized model easier later on. Placing the radio back in its spot, I glanced out the window and headed down the stairs to the first floor. Connie had just wrapped up her epic diplomatic cursing match. She was squatting by the cabin door, looking utterly satisfied as she watched the 5 great royal families get driven to the brink of madness. Seeing me, she jumped up and reported excitedly. Reporting to Captain Su. The results this time are absolutely brilliant. Long Xing and Yuan Zhu are practically losing their minds. If it weren't for the impending Great Flood, I bet they would have crossed the map just to kill me. It seems the bait was perfectly placed. The entire alien world is chanting slogans. Either the royal families make their plans public, or they have to see you dead. They wouldn't dare go public, so I bet Clark will have to jump out and take action soon. As long as we seize the right moment, we can wipe them all out in one go. I had already seen through the entire situation, but I still feigned surprise and nodded. Great job. By the way, stop calling me Master from now on. Just call me Captain Su like everyone else. Don't be so formal. I'm pretty easygoing, I said, patting Connie lightly on the shoulder. Seeing her expression of shock mixed with joy, I burst out laughing. Go get some rest. I still have work to do here. Take the time to learn more from Oreo. Once we board the ship, I'll give you a special mission. Understood, Captain Su. I will definitely complete the mission. Connie got into character immediately, shouting loudly like a rookie who just got her first gun, and dashed down the ship. She was so hyped that she was shadowboxing in the drizzling rain as she ran. Standing on the deck of the Hope, I realized I had just gained a new level of understanding regarding my own influence. The more subordinates you have, the heavier the responsibility. But there was no denying it. The feeling of holding others' lives in your hands was truly exhilarating. I shook my head and chuckled to myself. Whatever, no use overthinking it. Everyone has their own job to do. I just need to take care of my own turf. Now, it's time to go get the location intel. Right after that, I took out a heaven-stealing paper talisman and set a countdown timer for 22 seconds. The moment the talisman was activated, the familiar portal of light materialized. I started the timer, casually tossed it onto the bed, and stepped straight into the portal. In the captain's cabin, only the steady ticking of the second hand remained. 21. 13. Based on my experience from previous heaven-stealing jumps, I timed it perfectly this time. The exact moment the timer hit 1, the light portal burst open, and I returned, unable to hide the joy on my face. Success. The final piece of the map before setting sail. I've finally gathered it all. 3:40 p.m. The sky over the basin cleared up after the rain. The thunderstorm that had raged all night finally retreated in silence. Over 10 hours of torrential rain didn't just dump a terrifying amount of water. It also painted two rainbows, one faint and one vivid, across the sky. Looking from afar, the silver-gray Iron Mountain range had been washed clean of dust, standing out crystal clear. At the mountain peak, two wisps of cooking smoke gently drifted up, blending with the hanging rainbows, creating a scene so peaceful it felt unreal. Hope Village, under my protection, was like a hidden fishing village, free from war and the harassment of foreign races. Though the population was small, their cohesion and unity were definitely top tier in this post-apocalyptic world. Today was a day truly worth celebrating, so the whole village was unusually lively. On the path leading up the mountain, two militiamen guarding the gate were chatting while keeping an eye on the distance. The one on the left was Su Yuan, sharing my surname. He used to be a fitness coach before being selected for the militia. The one on the right was Chen Kai, the younger cousin of village chief Chen Shun. He had a burly build and extraordinary strength. Having these two guard the village gate not only reassured the leadership, but the villagers also joked that they were the guardian deities of hope. It's just that today, these two guardian deities were a bit distracted. Kai. Hey Kai, open your game panel and check. Did your brother send any messages yet? I'm dying of anxiety here. Ask him how much we've sold, Su Yuan said, visibly tense, even swallowing hard repeatedly to calm himself down. He was genuinely worried, so much so that he couldn't hide it. Chen Kai, hearing his name, rolled his eyes and scanned the surroundings. After confirming there was nothing unusual, he helplessly shook his head. Brother Yuan, can you not be so on edge? Look at you. You can't even hold your spear steady anymore. We haven't even been on shift for 2 hours, and this is the 4th time you've asked. What are you afraid of? It's a product personally designated by Chief Su. Do you really think it won't sell? Worst case, we just hoard it. Just relax. I guarantee that when you go up to check later, you'll see a number that'll make you very happy. As the village chief's cousin, he knew more and was naturally calmer. At the very least, his hands still held his spear firmly, showing no signs of panic. But that very calmness made Su Yuan even more anxious. This round of purchasing white sap was on a terrifying scale, so much so that even the large shelters would hesitate. This tree was like rubber, not rare in the wasteland, so to get ahead of others and sweep the market clean, we had to throw in a massive amount of supplies for exchange. Relying on the taxes the villagers paid after the last harvest wasn't enough, which was why the crowdfunding plan was born. As the initiator, I registered to shoulder 50% of the quota. 8% came from the surplus tax budget, and the remaining 43% was contributed by individual households. For raw materials, they contributed up to 80%. They only left enough rations to survive for 3 months. The more cautious ones kept half a year's worth, contributing 70%. But there were also those who were crazy enough to risk it all. Su Yuan was one of them. Hearing Kai's comfort, his hands shook even harder, and his forehead started sweating despite the cool weather. Kai, I'm not trying to scare you. The bold ones put in 80%, but do you know how much I put in? 95%. From the last batch of food, I only have enough left for half a month. The rest is all tied up in this turnover. If we lose, I'm basically back to square one. It's not that I don't trust Chief Su. I saw the public registry. Chief Su took on a whole 50% himself, which is no small amount. But you know, I almost starved to death before. If Chief Su hadn't ended the blizzard, if everyone hadn't dragged me back from out there, I might not have even survived a month ago. To have today, standing here with you in this man-eating world, and even talking about harvests with hope. At this point, Su Yuan's voice choked up, his eyes turning red. Because not everyone who survived in Hope Village was just lucky. In fact, over 60% of the current villagers were people who had almost died out there and somehow managed to crawl their way here. Seeing this man of steel, who had once suffered frostbite all over his body, yet still buried his head in the fields without shedding a single tear, now breaking out in a cold sweat with trembling hands, Chen Kai also fell silent for a moment. A moment later, he replied in a deep voice, "Brother Yuan, everything you just said, I understand completely. To be honest, if it weren't for Chief Su, I would have frozen to death in that saltpeter mine back then. You don't know this, but when the Japanese forced us to work there, we did hard labor every day and were only given exactly one potato. The kind that's smaller than a fist. The kind of potato that no one would even bother picking up from the dirt in peacetime. Yet back then, I even dreamed about when I'd get to eat 2 or 3. I was so hungry I felt like passing out with every swing of the pickaxe. I thought my corpse would just be left in that pit in a few days. But then, right when I thought I couldn't hold on anymore, Chief Su appeared. Wearing iron armor, he charged straight in, smashed the camp, and slaughtered those dogmen inside. My God, that scene, just thinking about it now still gets my blood pumping. We were standing up high looking down, watching Chief Su swing his blade and hack those wild dogs to pieces. The hot blood rushed straight to my head. We were all starving and exhausted, but I don't know where the strength came from. We just screamed and charged after Chief Su, fighting like absolute madmen. But you know what? The funniest thing happened right after that. Hearing this, despite his anxiety, Su Yuan was drawn into the story and couldn't help but urge him on. What? Tell me. You're leaving me hanging at the best part. Dropping the act, Chun Kai laughed and nodded. I knew you wouldn't guess it. This is definitely my cousin's dark history. The village chief, I mean. He told me not to go around blabbing about it. But if I tell you, you gotta keep it a secret for me, okay? Back then, we had been starving for days, and right after the fight, we were completely drained. Everyone's blood sugar dropped, and we were all sprawled out on the ground. In his delirious state, I don't know what my cousin was thinking, but he firmly believed Chief Su was a time-traveling general from ancient times. He even compared Chief Su to Lu Bu from the Three Kingdoms. Then he made us act just like in the movies. We had to kneel down and bow to see if Lord Lu Bu would accept us as his followers. Thinking back, it's hilarious, but at the time, we were all blind with hunger and scared to death, so we just knelt along with him. But do you know what I was thinking at that moment? Su Yuan raised an eyebrow, probably thinking that following Chief Su meant you'd get food and live a good life, right? No. Chun Kai shook his head with a bitter smile. When you're about to starve to death, who dares to dream that big? I only had one thought in my head at that moment. I wondered if this Lord Lu Bu would take pity on us and give us 2 potatoes each. Just 2 potatoes. Even if I died right after eating those 2 potatoes, I'd be satisfied. But then, Chief Su really was a good man. Even when food was so scarce, he still gathered all the rations in the camp and cooked a massive pot for us to eat our fill. And you know what? He didn't eat a single bite. He left it all for us. I remember it so clearly. That day, I ate 2.5 potatoes in one go. Potatoes as big as fists. I ate so fast I almost bit my tongue. It was so good I could cry. I even chugged 2 bowls of the potato broth. At this point, Chun Kai let out a long breath, paused for a moment, and continued. It might sound hard to believe now, but before leaving the camp, Chief Su even pointed us toward Juhua village and left behind a whole stack of flatbreads. The moment I saw that pile of bread, I only had one thought in my head. If he's willing to take me in, then even if I have to risk my life for him, I'd do it willingly. So don't let my calmness fool you this time. I actually put in 95% too. As for my cousin, he threw in almost everything. He barely left a week's worth of rations. After speaking for so long, he was a bit out of breath, but his eyes were full of faith. Faith in this village and the man behind it all. Suimo. And another thing, Brother Yuan. Even though we're just a couple of gatekeepers right now, you know that by following Chief Su, our village will only grow stronger. Who knows, maybe one day we'll even restore civilization to how Earth used to be. If we want to keep our positions, if we want to go further, we can't just keep panicking and worrying like this. You want to know the trading results, right? You don't need numbers. Just take a whiff of that smell and you'll know. Kai raised his hand and pointed toward the mountain peak, where the cooking smoke was drifting down with the wind. He smiled faintly. Everything was as clear as day. The smell. Standing opposite him, listening to Kai's words that were half confession and half lecture, Su Yuan wasn't angry at all. Instead, he nodded sincerely, then turned serious. He took a deep breath. For the first second, a look of confusion flashed across his face. In the second, that expression turned into surprise mixed with joy. By the third second, it was as if he had an epiphany, nodding continuously. The aroma drifting down from the mountain was all too familiar. It was the smell of beef and carrot filling, wrapped in buns and steamed. The smell that only appeared when the buns were perfectly cooked in the bamboo steamers. Previously, after the raid on the Rust refugee camp, the village had celebrated with this exact type of steamed bun. That day, the aroma spread throughout the village. Everyone kept glancing toward the kitchen, waiting until the food was distributed before they were willing to go back to work. As someone who had almost starved to death, Su Yuan remembered this smell very clearly. He wouldn't forget it even if he died. Yet today, on what seemed like an ordinary day, he smelled it again. The smell of celebration. Looking over at Chen Kai, seeing his relaxed expression and that faint, no big deal smile, Su Yuan suddenly realized he had just been masterfully led by the nose. He didn't say another word, quietly returning to his post. Chen Kai didn't speak either, just giving a slight nod of satisfaction. But just as he was about to open his mouth to speak again, Kai's eyes suddenly sharpened. A faint black appeared on the horizon. Su Yuan, 9 o'clock direction. Get ready to signal. Without guns, they had to immediately report any strangers to their superiors. That was the basic guard protocol for the gate militia. But as the black dot drew closer, both of them gradually relaxed. That vehicle, though looking a bit bulkier than before, was instantly recognizable to them. The Earth Tiger. My vehicle. The car stopped, and the group that stepped out was also very familiar, the village's elusive intelligence squad. Having just been lectured into clarity by Kai, and seeing the intelligence squad return looking exhausted, especially Captain Pei Xiao, who was walking like a zombie, Su Yuan couldn't help but laugh. He took the initiative to step forward and greet them. Oh hey, Captain Pei. Mission accomplished. Yeah, it's done. Hearing his name, Pei Xiao nodded in response, his feet still moving. It's done, thanks. But because he had too much on his mind, combined with the wet and slippery road, he slipped and crashed right into Su Yuan. Just as he was about to look up and apologize, what met his eyes was that familiar, meaningful smile. Pei Xiao. Su Yuan smiled slyly. Captain Pei, I know you're in a rush to find answers, but hold on a second. Take a good sniff. What's that smell? Out of reflex, Pei Xiao took a light sniff. After the rain, the smell of damp earth was strong, mixed with fresh vegetation. It was very refreshing. The whole squad also reeked of gasoline from the Earth Tiger. Wait, there was another smell. Thinking back on the past 6 hours, the whole squad, under my orders, had driven around in circles in all 12 directions within a 100-kilometer radius of the basin. Thinking about the purpose of today's trip, the weather, the circumstances, and then smelling this aroma. In an instant, he understood. I had deliberately made the squad run around in circles as a diversionary tactic, to force any foreign races or spies in the village to expose their flaws, and to ensure the plan's success. Even he, the intelligence captain, had been kept in the dark by me. Damn it, Pei Xiao, oh Pei Xiao. A mere gatekeeper figured it out, yet the intelligence captain was this clueless? As his mind cleared, Pei Xiao shuddered slightly, immediately jumping off Su Yuan, his expression turning entirely serious. Brother Su, are you interested in joining the intelligence squad? I'm serious. We really need observant people like you. Su Yuan emphasized with a humble smile. Oh please, Captain, you flatter me. Every position has its own meaning. The intelligence squad is important, but us gatekeepers are just as crucial. Knowing the other party was hiding his talents, Su Yuan answered smoothly. That humble attitude made Pei Xiao nod in approval once again. Without another word, he patted Su Yuan's shoulder with deep respect, then led his squad until they disappeared into the fog of the mountain slope. As soon as the intelligence squad was out of sight, Su Yuan smugly turned to Kai, waving his hand to show off. How was that, Chen Kai? Was your bro's performance top tier, or what? But before he could gloat for long, he was immediately scolded. Performance my ass. Chief Su is here. Look sharp. Greetings, Chief Su. Yeah. Is it cold standing guard out here? Not cold at all, sir. Standing guard for the village. Serving the village. We never feel cold. Looking at the two militiamen standing ramrod straight in front of me, I nodded in satisfaction and patted them both on the shoulder. Whether a village is thriving or not, you only need to look at its front line. From the early days when the militia were as skinny as sick monkeys, to now, with their bulging muscles and broad, sturdy shoulders, just one look was enough to see how far hope had come. Both Iron Rock Mountain and the path leading up to it had been heavily funded and paved with solid concrete. Along the mountainside, massive drainage pipes, like the bodies of dragons, clung tightly to the cliffs, cascading down the slope, as majestic as any pre-war infrastructure. On the outside, leftover materials from building the Hope were repurposed and attached as a protective armor layer. With this system, I believe that as long as we coated the surface with energy-absorbing glue, the recent torrential downpour would be nothing more than a scratch. Standing at the foot of the mountain, I looked at the entirety of Iron Rock, my heart filled with deep emotion. Before heading up, out of habit, I asked, "Anything special happened today?" I asked this question every day, and usually, no one had an answer. But today, the militiaman on the left chuckled knowingly. "Captain Sue, just take a sniff and you'll know." "Wait, what? Smell?" Hearing that, I took a deep breath. Thanks to the energy water and the resonance of the mountain and sea fist, my sense of smell was many times sharper than an ordinary person's. In the same space, I could analyze scents on a much deeper level. Inhale. Analyze. Layers of scents appeared in my mind one by one. The earth after the rain, the sweat of the militia, the heat radiating from the mountain peak, the faint burnt smell of chemical reactions from crafting the energy-absorbing glue. But right at that moment, a very faint fragrance, so light it almost blended into the air, suddenly slipped into my nose. This smell, thin as mist, clear as the wind. And with just one more sniff, my brain instantly recognized it. The scent of a blessing. Sure enough, paying closer attention, the air carried a fragrance similar to when I received the Lion Man statue and the Rat Man feather. Even though I was a veteran of 100 battles, I couldn't help but feel moved. Amazing. So that kid Chin Shin secretly prepared such a huge gift for me. With my special upgrade system, basic blessings that seemed trivial to others could be reverted to their ancestral state and turned into weapons of mass destruction in my hands. And for the upcoming voyage, I had already set a goal to collect as many blessings as possible. I didn't expect to score one right here in the village before even leaving. Heaven truly rewards those who put their hearts into it. Not bad. Not bad at all. I appreciate the thought. Thinking about how Chun Shun had secretly kept this under wraps to surprise me, I nodded happily and quickened my pace up the mountain. Compared to when I came down, my steps were noticeably faster now. Are you kidding me? How could he even guess that? Looking at Su Yuan's, I knew it all along, face, and then watching my silhouette gradually disappear, Chen Kai felt his heart tremble slightly. And right at that moment, he suddenly understood why Chun Shin always said, "To enter Hope Village, one must absolutely be a person of great destiny." I had no idea what they were thinking behind my back. All I knew was that my brisk steps had brought me to the peak of Iron Rock, over 40 meters high. The rain tarps had been taken down. Thanks to the efficient drainage system, the mountain surface was almost completely dry. Aside from a few people resting between shifts, the majority of the villagers were still busy at the peak and the surrounding platforms. Nearly 100 people, everyone working in perfect rhythm. Seeing me come up, they all glanced over in unison, then lowered their heads and went back to work. Just a small detail like that was enough to make me extremely satisfied. Based on the coordinate map of the alien race's gathering spots scouted by Pei Xiao, the final crucial task before setting sail was complete. Plus, there was Chun Shin's little surprise, an alien race blessing. Thinking of this, standing on the high platform, I didn't even bother hiding my joy. I took a deep breath and shouted loudly, "Great job! Everyone is doing excellent work. Today, I'm personally footing the bill. We're throwing a feast tonight. There will be meat, and everyone gets to eat their fill. Keep up the hard work. We will have supplies. We will have territory. Whatever others have, we will have. Whatever others don't have, we will also have." The words were simple, but the effect was anything but. 3 consecutive bombshells, Captain Sue's praise, a grand feast, and all-you-can-eat meat made the already fiery atmosphere completely explode. Work efficiency instantly skyrocketed. I nodded with a knowing smile and turned toward the back of the mountain, where the main meeting room was located. On the way, I dropped by the two energy-absorbing glue warehouses. Sure enough, they were almost completely empty. The glue was packaged and sold out the moment it came out of the oven. In these chaotic times, Hope Village's marketing campaign was absolutely flawless. It seemed that solo survival would only get harder and harder from now on. In this wasteland, only a collective force could maximize the advantage of individual information. Like today, if I were still alone, even if I knew in advance, I wouldn't have been able to hoard much in terms of supplies. My gaze landed on the meeting room in the distance. Inside, the executive committee members were buried in ledgers, calculating, taking inventory, and listing goods. Even Zhongqing Shu was there, pitching in with everyone else just like the rest. I stood outside observing for a moment, then nodded and walked away without disturbing anyone. As the largest shareholder of the energy-absorbing glue production plan, regardless of the revenue, I was entitled to a 50% cut. This pile of supplies hadn't fully realized its value yet, but the moment we set foot on the new continent, it would instantly turn into construction capital. When other factions were still starving during the initial phase of landing on the new land, and we were already overflowing with food, it would be no different than having the whole world working for us. After so many storms, I was getting more and more accustomed to playing the long game. With just one move, I could already see the entire chain of benefits behind it. Walking and thinking, I soon returned to the mountain peak. Taking advantage of everyone being busy, I sat in a well-lit stone cave and began a round of information synthesis. As of now, all preparations before setting sail were nearly complete. Today was the 19th, and more than half the day had already passed. Tomorrow was the 20th, the day after was the 21st, and at dawn on the 21st, the ocean disaster would officially begin. With 2.5 days left, my schedule was detailed as follows. Day 19. Task 1. Meet with Shun Ku for a discussion. Previously, because I needed to stay hidden, I had rejected Shun Ku's invitation to collaborate 3 times. Now that my cards were on the table, there was no need to hide anymore. I had to quickly finalize the plan to rendezvous at sea. The tundra shelter needed a portion of the energy-absorbing glue as support. If their ship broke down because they didn't have the glue, it would be a huge hassle. Estimated time, 1 hour. Day 20. Task 1. Transport goods onto the ship. Mobilize a portion of the villagers to transfer all remaining resources onto the Hope and simultaneously seal the storage warehouses. Estimated time, 8 to 12 hours. Task 2. Hold the second all-village assembly, the setting sail conference. Due to security requirements, all villagers had to stay on Iron Rock Mountain and wait, so a meeting was needed to boost morale and stabilize the people's hearts. The previously stockpiled weapons would also be handed over to the executive committee as a trump card during the disaster. The blueprint for the lifeboat was available but hadn't been crafted yet. We could take the time to build a few, equip the ship, and leave a couple for the village's backups. Estimated time, 2 p.m., the 21st. Task 1, Final Ship Inspection. Check all functions of the Hope to ensure no malfunctions when setting sail. Estimated time, 4 p.m. Task 2. Relocate supplies from the underground shelter. Except for fixed structures like the energy well, smelting furnace, crafting table, lathe, and oil well, all other supplies must be packed and brought aboard to minimize losses in case the shelter encounters an incident. Estimated time, 2 hours. Task 3. Final inspection and upgrade of the shelter. Although it's currently sturdy, with high-level iron pickaxes becoming common, stone walls below level 5 are no longer safe. A thief with a special pickaxe could destroy the entire structure. Therefore, upgrading is mandatory. The plan could be pouring reinforced concrete or encasing the shelter in steel. Estimated time, 1 hour. Task 4. Inspect and upgrade items to bring on the voyage. Double-check all equipment. Give important items a minor upgrade, but keep at least 10,000 upgrade points in reserve for emergencies. I carefully wrote each line on the paper, thinking and refining the plan's details to ensure nothing was missed. But looking at the blank space at the bottom of the page, I suddenly stopped my pen and added one more line. Voyage mission, pick up my sister. Estimated time, 10 days. On this wasteland that hadn't yet been swallowed by the ocean, time passed frustratingly slow. Every day, every hour, every second, I wanted to tear time in half to use it. But once the ocean waves rose and the hope set sail, time would fly. At a steady speed, the ship would travel over 1,000 kilometers a day. In a maximum of 10 days, the two siblings, separated for so long in the apocalypse, would be reunited. As long as I could pick up my sister, there would be nothing left in this world that could hold me back. Carefully folding the plan, I looked at the darkening sky outside, turned off the light, and stepped out, feeling excited. "Brother Sumo, are you done with work?" Seeing me step out, Chun-Shin smiled from ear to ear and immediately ran over. "Oh, looking at you must be a massive haul. Huh, great village chief?" I joked, my eyes carrying an unpredictable glint. Not immediately catching the hidden meaning, Chun-Shin acted like an excited kid. "Brother Sumo, we really struck it rich this time. We used up 69% of the raw materials, and the warehouse is completely empty." The moment the goods were listed on the market, they were snatched up in seconds. Even though a few others have started copying us, just from this first batch alone, the profits are enough to upgrade the entire village. This time, everyone in the village is going to be rich. In front of outsiders, Chun-Shin still maintained his image as the village chief, but in front of me, he was still that passionate college student from back then. Walking and talking, he pulled out his notebook, rambling endlessly about raw material costs, supply chains, sales times, and skyrocketing price charts. Finally, a number appeared on the page that would shock anyone who saw it. 897% profit in just 3 days. If we deduct the 10% of raw materials used internally, the rest is still enough to produce another 21% of goods. And if we sell it all, the total profit will reach 989%, nearly 10 times the capital. Do you understand? And that's after the game took a 50% cut for shipping fees. If we weren't taxed, the profit could have been pushed to 20, maybe even 25 times. Even if a few places are copying us now, because we swept up all the raw materials in the first wave, they can only pick up scraps. They're no threat. Chun-Shin's eyes grew increasingly fanatical. He clearly understood just how massive a windfall the village had scored this time. I smiled and asked a loaded question. "Besides that, is there anything else?" Seeing my knowing smile, Chun-Shin froze for a moment before immediately catching on, scratching his head with a wry smile. "Brother Sumo, I really can't hide anything from you. That other thing, we were planning to save it for the last day as a farewell gift before you set sail. Who knew you'd find out so soon? The scent of a blessing really is strange. For those who hadn't been exposed to it for long, it was almost impossible to detect even a trace. But for me, someone who had possessed a blessing very early on, right there on the peak of Iron Mountain, that scent was as thick as the smell of steaming beef buns. What was even stranger was that it wasn't fleeting. It continuously spread around, making it impossible to ignore even if you wanted to. A pre-voyage gift, huh? I asked with a smile. You guys are pretty thoughtful. But, if I remember correctly, these things can't be traded on the market, right? As we walked, I chatted with interest. Before, everyone was dirt poor and resources were scarce, so no one knew where the market's limits lay. But after the recent opening of the secret realm trading, I discovered something. Any blueprint of rare grade or higher couldn't be listed. Not only that, all equipment in the broad sense, from lighters and iron pickaxes to shoes and glasses, as long as they reached rare grade or higher and had attribute lines, couldn't be traded publicly. They could only be traded face-to-face or through the secret realm. And those mysterious items carrying blessings were locked down even tighter. Regardless of their grade, the moment you received them, they had a default line: untradeable. This attribute practically blocked all attempts to put blessings on the market. As soon as I finished speaking, Chun-Shin slowed his pace, scratching his head and chuckling. Brother Sumo, I knew you'd ask about this. Blessings used to be extremely rare, but things are different now. Through relationships slowly built with foreign races, a few poor, small tribes were willing to sell us blessings. The price? Yeah, it was steep. But think about it. Once something can be priced, in a market of tens of billions of people like ours, it's no longer an issue. Hearing that, I genuinely froze. Wait, if that's the case, why haven't I seen anything on the market? I scroll through it every day. I wasn't joking. Seriously, every day while eating, I take the time to open the market. just like in civilized times when people would scroll through TikTok or Weibo while eating. I understood very well that food sitting in a warehouse for a year wouldn't generate profit. Only when converted into resources and power could it yield 5 or 10 times the return in the future. Just like this time, I poured all of Hope Village's strength into a massive gamble. Goods only truly had value when they circulated in the market. That was why I checked the market every day with the mindset of picking up scraps or snatching deals, but I always left disappointed after every meal. Early in the apocalypse, I had even picked up things like large-scale vegetable planting frames, items that you couldn't find now even if you searched until your eyes bled. So when I heard that blessings could be bought, my interest was immediately piqued. They aren't there, bro. Chunshin shook his head with a wry smile. You still can't trade them directly on the market. As long as an item has a blessing attribute, it's hard-locked and can't be listed. But there is a way to bypass it. First, we list an item without a blessing on the market. Then, we turn on the inspection mode, letting the buyer preview it. During that 30-minute trial period, the buyer can receive the item. And right at that moment, we have the foreign race step in and apply the blessing to it. If the foreign race finishes in time during the trial, and the buyer cancels the transaction, the item returns to the market. Then we just take it down, and boom, an enchanted item carrying a blessing is back in our hands. I stood frozen, looking at Chunshun as if I had just heard a game hack code. There's a trick like that? But this method has its downsides. Chunshun quickly continued. First, the time is too tight. The foreign races we trade with are all small tribes, and they rarely finish within 30 minutes. Second, the blessing is very weak. Even if they finish, it's mostly just for show. The practical effect is almost zero. Slapping it on the shelter is just better than nothing. Frankly speaking, it's a symbolic item, kind of like players collecting antiques. We decided from the start that if we failed 3 times, we'd give up. Who knew we'd succeed on the second try? It seemed Chunshun was afraid I'd get angry that everyone had spent a ton of resources just to buy a decorative item. He spoke his last sentence as fast as the wind, as if delaying a beat would earn him an immediate chewing out from Chief Su. But contrary to his imagination, I was smiling, even quite pleased. Well done, I nodded. I like this item. Give it to me tonight. If the effect is decent, keep buying more. Bill the cost directly to my supply warehouse. Thinking about how someone in humanity was smart enough to exploit a system bug, I couldn't help but chuckle in delight. Everyone hates bugs, but when a bug benefits them, no one refuses. That's just human nature. The preview feature had existed for a long time, but since my first try proved it useless, you could only look, not touch. The time limit was 30 minutes, and a slip of the hand meant the system deducted your money directly. I had long thrown it out of my mind. For a pragmatist like me, that feature was nothing but trash. I didn't expect someone to actually find a loophole. Oh right, I suddenly thought. Later, if he has free time on the ship, I can have her sell blessings for extra income. It'll train her blessing skills and boost the Lion King's reputation. As I followed Chunshun toward the banquet area halfway up the mountain, I secretly calculated. Compared to those village-level foreign races, although he wasn't fully strong yet, with her status as a divine priest, her value definitely wasn't low. This was clearly a sustainable path for long-term development, a treasure trove that could spawn resources. At the same time, deep in the underground shelter, where he was intently studying talismans, she suddenly let out a loud sneeze. We arrived just in time at the banquet venue. With my promise of today's success, this celebration would last from 6 in the evening until midnight. During that time, whenever anyone got hungry, they could come and eat at any moment. There was only one condition. No food could be taken out of the area. Other than that, eat as many beef buns as you want, drink as much meat soup as you please. Even so, most of the villagers were still finishing up their tasks. The only ones sitting and eating were a few militiamen who had just changed shifts, plus the intelligence squad that had just returned from outside. After settling things, Chunshun quickly grabbed 2 buns and ran off while eating to fetch the item with the blessing. Meanwhile, Pei Xiao smiled brightly, carrying 2 massive braised pork trotters as he sat down at the table. Chief Su, how's the situation? He asked. Grease still smeared his face from gnawing on bones earlier, but his eyes were shining with excitement. The intel gathered this time was highly accurate. Great job, I nodded. Keep the tasks I assigned you earlier. You probably won't need to head out for the next few days. I took a pork trotter from Pei Xiao's hand and, without standing on ceremony, took a massive bite. I had to admit, Pei Xiao was truly capable. Tasked with scouting 12 directions around the central area, he didn't expose a single flaw. According to his report, a total of over 23,400 foreign race members had gathered around the basin before the disaster. To avoid a direct clash with the human god, Su-Mo, this foreign army split into 3 large divisions, deployed from the 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock directions around the basin. That direction was exactly toward Carp Lake. If they took this route, they couldn't reach the new continent, nor could they reach the main war zone, which was the safest area in the eyes of the foreign races. Within that fan-shaped area, the 3 armies were clearly distributed. Division 1, strength-based foreign races, totaling 14,200 troops. Their logistics and equipment were very strong, serving as the main assault force for this attack plan. Division 2, mutated insects with various special abilities, totaling 3,680 troops. Though their specific abilities were unknown, it was speculated that this was a special ops force for specific situations. Division 3, a mixed force of all shapes and sizes, even including flying birds. Their numbers ranged from 5,500 to 6,000 individuals. Their current distances were also very clear. The closest was Division 1, only 330 kilometers from the basin. The furthest was Division 3, a full 690 kilometers away. The insect division trailed about 100 kilometers behind Division 1, holding the middle position. All this information was the result of the intelligence squad risking their lives, hovering on the line between life and death to bring it back. In the future, I never spared my praise for Pei Xiao and the intelligence squad over the radio. I even told him straight up, as long as you don't betray me, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. But right now, in the middle of the wasteland, seeing Pei Xiao hand over a dipping saucer of oil with trembling hands, his face still tense, I couldn't help but laugh. Don't be so tense. This mission wasn't as simple as you think. You need to have confidence in what you've accomplished. I'm very satisfied. Keep up the good work. When the village expands in the future, this spot is still yours. Saying that, I dipped a large piece of meat in the oil and gave him a big thumbs up. That praise acted like a tonic, and Pei Xiao finally breathed a sigh of relief. His hands stopped shaking, his face relaxed, and for the first time in days, he smiled naturally. I understand, Chief Su. Your method this time was absolutely right, he said seriously. In intelligence, the most important thing is secrecy. Sometimes, the less they know, the better the results. Me? Looking at his face full of worship, I didn't even bother explaining or figuring out what kind of mythical script he had just written in his head. I just quietly went back to demolishing the massive pork trotter in front of me. The braised trotter was rich in color. In civilized times, it would definitely be listed as a fast-track gout combo. But under the hands of Hope Village's chefs, it was braised to melt-in-your-mouth perfection, fragrant and rich without being greasy. The skin was chewy, the meat tender, the fat perfectly balanced, the tendons crunchy, all enhanced by a deep soy sauce aroma. Taking a bite, the sweetness of the meat blended with the scent of oil and scallions, making my mouth water instantly. Right at that moment, Chun Shun returned, carrying the item with the blessing. I casually tossed it straight into my spatial storage, then called Chun Shun, Pei Xiao, and Zhong Qing-shu, who had just sneaked over, to sit together at one table. Good wine, tender meat, an absolute feast. From past 6 o'clock, we ate and chatted lively until 8 in the evening. After that, the villagers getting off their shifts gradually arrived, drawn in by the bustling atmosphere. If there weren't enough tables and chairs, they just sat on the ground. Dozens of people huddled together gnawing on pork trotters, their faces shining with grease, but still laughing and chatting. Everyone was also given a bottle of beer. The whole mountainside felt like an open-air pub. All right, I'm done drinking, I waved my hand. Got a meeting tomorrow, gotta save my strength. Besides, the kids in the shelter haven't eaten yet. They're probably starving. I need to head back and take care of them. Carrying a bag of pre-packaged meat, I rubbed my belly and strolled back down the path. The night breeze blew gently, and the alcohol in my system slowly dissipated with each step. When I was only about 30% buzzed, I slowed down, savoring this rare sense of peace in the apocalypse. In the wasteland, as long as there are people, there is hope. As long as there are resources, there is a future. Hope Village only had a little over 100 people, but looking up from the foot of the mountain at the brightly lit peak, a boundless ambition still surged in my heart. One day, this basin will become my own independent kingdom. Hope Village, Hope Town, Hope City. Human civilization will sooner or later take root here. You guys are hungry, right? Eat up, I said with a laugh as I stepped into the second floor of the shelter. If you were this hungry, why didn't you go up to the village to get some food? Don't force yourselves like this. The pressure of being the boss is exhausting. In front of me were 4 little ones and 1 girl eating like a whirlwind. The kids were slurping away with their heads down, and while he tried to act polite, her movements couldn't hide her hunger. I sat down on the sofa next to the table, watching them with a meaningful smile. Muir has to become the best captain. No, the best in the world. Her mouth was still full of food, but Muir was still shouting slogans with vigor, making Oreo next to her glance over, as if to say, childish. He nodded furiously like a chicken pecking at grain, terrified that if she was a beat too slow, I'd classify her as a problem student. Seeing their reactions, I knew that meat wasn't enough, so I waved my hand and ordered the kitchen below to bring up more. As a reward, I poured each of them a glass of energy water, then slowly walked up to the 3rd floor. Sitting at my desk, I poured myself a glass of energy water to sip and digest, then opened the game panel to take a look. After a day of disaster information spreading and brewing, the atmosphere in the chat channels had noticeably changed. Compared to the morning, when everyone was panicking like ants on a hot pan, the lunatics spouting nonsense in the world chat had now gone silent. What remained were calm, rational people seriously discussing their next steps. That kid Chen Shun is pretty smart. He made a fortune, and the world chat is full of people praising him. Looks like he might not have the caliber to be a top leader yet, but he'd be perfect as the Minister of Trade. I scrolled through the pile of praising comments in the world chat, unable to stop myself from nodding in satisfaction. In a situation where everyone needed energy-absorbing glue to survive the disaster, Hope Village was the only group holding the supply. But Chen Shun didn't use my name, nor did he try to polish his own reputation or show off. Initially, he distributed free samples to open the market, then maintained a kind attitude, never forgetting the tragic plight of humanity in the wasteland. Exploiting everyone to get rich? Wrong. Sustainable development? Right. Even though the product was in incredibly high demand, selling out as soon as it was listed, after calculating the costs of raw materials, labor, chemicals, and facilities, they only slightly increased the price by about 10 to 15%. That wasn't all. Chen Shin's final move was the real masterstroke, making the formula public. From the chemical composition and the mixing ratio with white sap to the reaction process and key points to watch out for, he didn't hide a single word. Making it public at such a crucial moment instantly caused the world chat to erupt in applause. The name, Hope Association, for seemingly simple words, was forever etched into the minds of countless people struggling to survive in the wasteland. Not only that, the Chinese government organizations and their affiliated shelters made millions of citizens feel an unprecedented warmth. White sap trees weren't rare, especially in the plains, so as soon as the instructions were out, government-affiliated shelters immediately mobilized people to harvest the sap. By tomorrow, the production of energy-absorbing glue would skyrocket exponentially. At that point, all Chinese citizens, upon verifying their identity, would be provided with enough glue to survive the disaster. Just thinking about the massive costs behind this campaign was enough for me to understand how expensive it was. But the government still did it. In return, not only did it make people from other countries go crazy with jealousy, but it also created an unprecedented wave of unity among the Chinese community, a unity that exploded across the wasteland. Natural disasters are heartless, but humans are not. It was time. I had to investigate exactly what this so-called humanity plan was. If it required sacrificing ordinary civilians, then no matter the cost, I had to stop it. Tapping lightly on the desk, I thought to myself, then opened the friends list and selected Shunku's avatar. Turning off the ceiling light and leaving only the warm yellow glow of the desk lamp, I slowly initiated the final call before the disaster truly struck. The familiar sound mixed with static rang out. After the initial connection phase, the relationship between Hope Shelter and Tundra Shelter had progressed to a married level. If we were hesitant to video call before, I was completely comfortable with it now, even looking forward to the other side picking up. As always, the call was answered right on the fourth beep. The screen displayed Shunku, her clothes covered in white sap, standing under a white sap tree, holding a scraping knife and jumping down to a wooden bucket below. Around her, floodlights illuminated the area like broad daylight. Seeing her so busy, I just nodded in greeting, signaling her to continue, then manually adjusted the camera angle to look around. Centered on Shunku, the camera panned in a circle. Before my eyes was a vast plain covered in green moss, densely packed with white sap trees. A quick count showed over 1,000 of them. This sight was extremely rare near the basin, but for such a vast plain, it was very normal. "Oh, you guys are packed over there, huh?" I laughed. "With so many people, do you have enough supplies?" After finishing scraping one tree and passing the plastic bucket to a helper, Shunku stood up straight. Only then did I see the true scale. Compared to Hope Village's all-hands-on-deck approach, Tundra Shelter was operating on a massive scale. Wherever there were floodlights, there were people. Refugees bent over, continuously scraping tree bark, forming a line that stretched for over a kilometer. Along that work line, every 10 meters stood a fully equipped soldier with guns and spears in hand, strictly guarding and absolutely protecting the workers. Yesterday, another migrant group of 40 people joined us. Shunku stepped onto the dirt path between the fields. Right now, Tundra Shelter has over 800 people. We still have enough supplies. If everyone rations a bit, lasting 3 to 5 months won't be a problem. Even I, who had always believed in Tundra Shelter's development, was startled. 800 people. Is that so? Can your ship even hold that many? Shunku scratched her head and laughed. Of course it can. Even with everyone on board, we still have nearly 100 spots left. So, does our god Sue want to join the squad? This time, her invitation was much more direct than before. I just smiled faintly, no longer dodging the question like I usually did. Sure, since you're inviting me so sincerely. I wouldn't mind tagging along. I knew it. Wait, what? Shunku stopped mid-sentence, her eyes wide, clearly short-circuiting. A look of both surprise and joy appeared on her face. Really? You really want to come? I'll report to the director right now and reserve a spot for you. Not just 100. We're willing to clear out 120 spots. You can bring all your supplies too. And if you're willing to join, I'll even give up the captain's seat for you. As she spoke, she paced back and forth within the frame. Seeing me constantly smiling, Shunku was so frustrated she wanted to stomp her feet. Her voice sounded aggrieved, but she couldn't bear to get angry. Think about it carefully, Suemo. Our director has admired you for a long time. If you agree to join, they said it straight up, they'll even give you the director position. Then, you can use the entire official support network however you want. I originally intended to joke back and brush it off, but thinking about my influence after drawing my sword today, I just waved my hand with a smile. I'm not joking. I really do intend to join, because I'm also curious about what this so-called humanity attack plan actually is. But I'll sail my own ship there. You don't need to come pick me up. Hearing the first sentence, Shunku was a bit disappointed, but at the second sentence, her eyes lit up like floodlights. Suemo, you really have your own ship? Up until now, you haven't even mentioned what you've built. By the way, how many people are you planning to bring? I smiled. Not many. Including my pets, 6 should be enough. Shunku froze. 6 people? A series of question marks instantly popped up in her head. With that few people, a large ship wasn't necessary, and a small ship. Was he just going out to sea for fun? Or was I joking again? But then, recalling the recent transactions between me and the government, Shunku suddenly had a bold theory. Wait a minute, your ship is a modern type, right? Fast, and the firepower isn't too bad, is it? Speaking too bluntly could easily offend, so she cleverly used flowery words. Fast meant a small ship, and strong firepower was just a compliment to make me feel good. Thinking of the Hope, which could run at 45 knots an hour and was equipped with a main cannon that fired 100 rounds a minute, I just nodded. That's right. You don't need to worry about its performance. You'll see when the time comes. I called you today to discuss meeting up and also to ask what this humanity attack plan is all about. I've been too busy these past few days to look into it. If it's interesting, maybe I'll want to join in on the fun. Having been close friends for a long time, I no longer kept my distance and spoke much more freely. Shinko nodded, then shook her head. Here's the thing. Our director has the full plan. If you need it, I'll ask for it. I'm sure they'll send it. Let me submit a request right now. Once I get it, I'll send it straight to you. No rush. Sending it tonight is fine, I replied. Also, send me your sailing coordinates. Once the tide rises, I'll immediately rendezvous with you. As I spoke, I tried to suppress the urge to ask her to casually stroll around the camp to see if my sister was there. After making the arrangements, the call ended. I leaned back in my chair, muttering to myself. I really underestimated Tundra Shelter's development. It seems the Huaxia government side isn't weak this time either. And why do I get the feeling the government is unusually friendly toward me? Analyzing the subtext behind every conversation had always been my specialty. I liked to sit and analyze, peeling back every word, every look, every expression. Shinko's comment about using the official network however you want sounded like a joke, but I knew very well it wasn't just empty talk. The government really wanted to recruit me, even willing to offer extremely attractive conditions. A nobody from the old world was now being heavily courted by an entire nation. So, in this humanity attack plan, Huaxia isn't on the opposing side. Tapping lightly on the desk, glancing at the diary that was no longer recorded in the system but written by hand, I fell into deep thought. Right at that moment, Shunke sent over a highly classified document, the complete attack plan from the government. The very first line read, "To all of humanity." The tone was formal and solemn, proving this was the official, unedited version. I pushed my diary aside and opened the document to read it carefully. A moment later, my expression turned dead serious. I picked up a pen and wrote 4 headings across 4 blank pages. Phase 1, approaching the front line. Phase 2, splitting the battlefield. Phase 3, independent combat. Phase 4, reversing the tide. With just these 4 lines, I had summarized the entire 8,500-word content of the plan. Under the dim light of the desk lamp, I sat at my desk, vigorously writing down the details under the 4 predefined headings. Humanity's attack plan wasn't a global alliance of hundreds of nations, nor was it the exclusive privilege of the 5 superpowers. The only thing that truly determined who got to know about and participate in the plan was one thing. You say your country's military is mighty, your arsenals are full, you've even ordered 5th-generation fighter jets, and your people's morale is boiling with the will to fight? Whether it's true or you're just blowing hot air, we get it. But there is one prerequisite. Your strength in the wasteland must meet the standard. If your shelter doesn't meet the basic criteria set by the plan, then sorry, you aren't qualified to be invited, let alone have the right to know its contents. And if you still want to participate, the only way is to proactively choose a big boss near you and follow them. This was the rule of the game that humanity's leaders in the wasteland had tacitly agreed upon. Even China didn't object this time, but voted in favor. The rule sounded unbelievable, but the reason was very simple. The situation of humanity in the wasteland was too dire. Earth had 197 countries, divided into 4 major races. Meanwhile, the game dropped players randomly. No one could guarantee that the people around you shared your nationality, language, or skin color. Because of this, since the system provided language translation so players could cooperate with anyone nearby to survive, governments worldwide, led by the 5 superpowers, began doing something no one expected, accelerating the dissolution of the concept of nation. Instead, the concept of a shelter gradually became the common identifier. It sounds strange, but thinking carefully, this was the inevitable evolution of society in the wasteland, and the most correct choice when facing the disaster. If one day the disaster ended, or there was a chance to rebuild, then perhaps in a year or 2, the concept of nations would return. But with the current situation, in just another year or 2, even the name China would become a thing of the past. In the wasteland, The first thing used to identify a survivor was their shelter. Nationality came second. It was like going abroad. Seeing someone of the same race might make you feel a bit of kinship, but when actually interacting, you still couldn't help but keep your guard up. Currently, for a shelter to be informed of and participate in humanity's attack plan, it had to meet 4 conditions. 1. A population of over 500. 2. A fully equipped defense force of at least 100 people. 3. Combat record. Must have won at least 1 battle annihilating over 500 enemies, or 2 battles annihilating over 200 enemies each. 4. Naval capability. The ship must meet standards, capable of carrying 1,000 people, equipped with over 3 modern cannons, more than 50 firearms, and enough ammunition for a 1,000-man war. 4. Must have the endorsement of an official organization. These 4 conditions were so strict that they practically eliminated 99.99% of all shelters. Among the remaining 0.01% across the entire wasteland, there were at most no more than 50 names. In other words, this was a crazy banquet reserved only for the elite of humanity. And it was this very plan that truly showcased the peak of human intellect. If I didn't know the true purpose of the game and the secrets of the wasteland, even I would have to bow in admiration. Because this plan was very simple. It was an open conspiracy. Even if the alien races knew its entire contents, it would still work. After carefully completing the notes under all 4 headings, I read them over a few times to ensure there were no loopholes. I didn't rush to deeply analyze the true meaning of this plan. Instead of continuing to think alone, I directly opened the game panel and sent a private invitation to Zhong Qingshu. After a short wait, she became the 3rd outsider to step foot into the shelter since it was built. When I opened the iron door, sure enough, Zhong Qingshu was just like a curious child, her eyes darting everywhere. But that curiosity quickly turned into astonishment as she followed the 2nd-floor corridor down to the 3rd floor. Surprised? I noticed the smell of alcohol on her was still quite strong. Thinking for a moment, I didn't pour her soda, but plugged in the kettle, boiled some water, and handed her a full glass. Thanks. She took the glass of hot water, holding it with both hands. Looking a bit shy, her cheeks flushed red, she finally spoke. Surprised? More like shocked to the core. Who would have thought that God Su, the strongest man in the wasteland, is living in a room? This simple? You have no idea. People on the World Channel are always guessing how magnificent your imperial palace must be. I understood perfectly well that this wasn't sarcasm, nor was it fake flattery. If you compared the 3rd floor of the shelter to a month ago, it truly was a place countless people dreamed of, sturdy, durable, well laid out. But in the current context, the walls weren't even painted, the floors still gathered dust every day, the living room/gym only had a clock hanging as a centerpiece, and the sofa still had grease stains from rushed meals. These things were still a dream for ordinary survivors, but compared to the large shelters now, it had indeed been left behind. If I were to start a live stream from this room right now, even if I ate hot pot again, the jealousy effect wouldn't be the same as before. Even so, this place might lag behind my reputation, but to me, it still carried a sense of belonging. Because every wall, every pillar, was built by my own hands from scratch. I smiled faintly and shook my head. Stop teasing me. I've been crazy busy this month, can't you see? Just wait until we set foot on the new continent. I guarantee I'll turn this room into the absolute peak residence globally. Luxurious, extravagant, and totally badass. This shelter too. I'll turn it into a holy land that everyone yearns for, to the point where just stepping inside once will be considered the honor of a lifetime. But right now isn't the time to settle down. We've got work to do. Hearing my words, Zhong Qingshu's eyes lit up, clearly imagining that glorious future. But when she saw me pull out the notebook detailing humanity's attack plan, her eyes instantly returned to their usual sharpness, and the smile on her lips gradually faded. What is this? This records the attack plan I mentioned to you before, the plan devised by humanity's leaders after the Great Naval Battle. Although I had never explained the whole thing, just by following the vague news on the World Channel recently, Zhong Qingshu had already guessed a few things. The shelters named in this plan are all human super strongholds. Even Dragon Flag, Crimson Moon, Dawn Sword, and Polar Watch, The four-peak shelters with populations over 5,000 are all on the list. But what was the specific plan? No one dared to make it public on the world chat. To ordinary people, it was just a distant, high-level super mission. Just like the top-secret military plans of Earth in the past, mysterious and out of reach. Therefore, upon realizing that the seemingly ordinary notebook in my hands contained such crucial information, Zhong Qingshu froze, saying nothing, her expression instantly turning serious. She stood up abruptly, snatched the notebook straight from my hands, and intently read every line. I didn't rush her. I just quietly walked over to the desk, took a pinch of green tea, and dropped it into a cup of hot water. As soon as the water was poured, the light aroma of tea spread, a bit bitter but very refreshing. I sat down in the chair opposite her, calmly waiting. Everyone has their own way of focusing. I usually tap lightly on the table, listening to the rhythmic knocks to gather my thoughts. Zhong Qingshu, on the other hand, tended to grip whatever she was holding so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Only in such a state of extreme tension could she analyze problems with the sharpest precision. A long time later, when the clock hands pointed to nearly 10 at night, she frowned and looked up. Suamo, this is a summary, right? Can you show me the original? I need more information. I nodded. As long as you don't leak it, I'll send the full version directly to your panel. Zhong Qingshu read the original very quickly. In just 5 minutes, she had connected everything with what she already knew, then paused. The entire ocean area of the wasteland will be divided into 12 war zones. Large shelters will deploy warships, transport people, and lead small groups into each zone, dividing the battlefield for independent combat. Once a war zone achieves victory, they will turn back to support the zones still locked in a stalemate, destroying them piece by piece, winning zone by zone, and finally gathering all of humanity's forces to counterattack the foreign races on both sea and land. But the plan doesn't explain why war zones 1, 5, and 12 have the confidence to guarantee victory. Hearing her point out the exact detail I had also suspected, I held my teacup and took a small sip. This is exactly why this plan could be publicly circulated. Because it possesses an inexplicable ability to win. So even if it seems reckless, the foreign races are forced to face it head-on. If these 3 main war zones lose, then nearly 80% of humanity at sea will essentially be serving themselves up to the enemy, becoming nothing more than lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Therefore, this plan is actually a life-and-death gamble. Humanity is betting that we can win, while the foreign races are betting that we will lose. Zhong Qingshu hissed softly through her teeth. Too risky. The Russians' polar bear shelter is located exactly in War Zone 5, the central position of the entire system. If this crazy plan was initiated by them, the foreign races will definitely focus their firepower there. Once the central war zone is destroyed, even if zones 1 and 12 win, it will be very difficult to send reinforcements. And when the war truly breaks out, at least 40% of humanity will have to be sacrificed. Even though right now, they have no idea of their fate. I nodded. Exactly. So the point that needs analyzing is very clear. I was always used to looking at problems from the perspective of motives and goals. Sooner or later, we'd have to face the foreign races on the new continent. So instead of being passive, humanity chose to take the initiative, choosing both the time and the battlefield. As for the goal, it was highly likely they were aiming to seize massive treasure chests, thereby unlocking technology, rapidly restoring civilization, and completely turning the tables. Zhong Qingshu, on the other hand, excelled at evaluating problems from the standpoint of positions and consequences. Although our 2 ways of thinking intersected, it was precisely because of this that they complemented each other perfectly. Assuming the 3 main war zones all win and can turn back to support the others as planned, which war zone will have the lowest risk? I answered almost without thinking, War Zone 12. Because it's in shallow waters and close to the new continent, retreating is very easy. Just take 1 step back, and the sky is high, the ocean is wide. Zhong Qingshu immediately followed up. Then which war zone has the highest risk? Number 1, I answered concisely. If it fails, it's the hardest place to retreat from. Unless they don't plan on going to the new continent anymore. Zhong Qingshu nodded, her eyes sharpening. Then try putting yourself in the shoes of the people in Warzone 1. Under what circumstances would you dare to take on this most dangerous central role? That question hit me like a hammer to the head, instantly plunging me into deep thought. Standing in the most dangerous position, who could guarantee that Zones 5 and 12 wouldn't just run away and leave them to die? So the people in Warzone 1 must have an incredibly strong reason, strong enough to feel secure in shouldering this strategic role. I quickly listed 3 possibilities. First, Warzone 1 was just bait. Humanity's true firepower lay elsewhere, using Zone 1 to lure the foreign races into attacking, creating an opportunity for the main forces to escape. Second, the people in Warzone 1 had an absolute means of escape, so they weren't afraid of being abandoned. Third, Warzone 1 was actually the safest place. Or for some reason, the foreign races wouldn't choose to attack this place, so even if they were left behind, it wouldn't matter. Wait, I suddenly realized. If that's the case, then, connecting this with the Shanghai card I had briefly glimpsed in the ruins of time, along with the true topography of the wasteland, a bold hypothesis instantly ignited in my mind. At 1:04 a.m., as Zhong Qingshu's figure completely disappeared into the night, I returned to the shelter, my mind still a tangled mess of thousands of overlapping thoughts. Tonight's harvest was too massive, so massive that I only needed to set sail and verify a few key points to touch the real answer. Of course, neither of us were strategic geniuses. The people who devised this plan were definitely several levels above us. But thanks to my deep understanding of the game and knowledge of the wasteland's secrets, I was able to attack the problem from a different dimension, a sort of level suppression strike. Deducing the truth backward from all available data, this kind of reasoning had always been effective. The Russian shelter would likely move to Warzone 4, and the straight route from my location would be Warzone 10. Calculated by a 3:4 grid ratio, it was indeed on a symmetrical diagonal. If I wanted to avoid Warzone 5, I'd have to take a detour, but it was still within my control. After replying to a few more rendezvous messages from Shinku, looking at my packed schedule with yet another item checked off, I contentedly returned to my small bed, closed my eyes, and fell into a deep sleep. At this point, there were exactly 2 days left before the disaster struck. The moon set, the sun rose. As I went to sleep earlier and earlier, I also gradually started waking up earlier. With a body that had evolved to an abnormal level, I barely needed much sleep to recover. Just past 7 in the morning, I opened my eyes and sat up in bed. "You ran over to sleep with me again today, huh?" Looking at Oreo, the dog I hadn't seen much since upgrading the 3rd floor of the shelter, snuggling affectionately beside me, I couldn't help but feel a warmth in my heart. I picked her up, rubbing her head with a smile. Day by day, becoming the strongest in the wasteland, aside from my resources growing more abundant and my equipment getting stronger. My personal life hadn't improved one bit. Just as Zhong Qingshu had said, there was no time to sleep in, nor any chance for entertainment or relaxation. My whole body was like a bowstring pulled to its absolute limit. As long as it held, it was fine, but once it snapped, the consequences would be terrifying. Oreo clearly sensed that too. She lay beside me, her eyes full of worry, occasionally letting out a soft bark as if to comfort me. Seeing her like that, I felt both touched and amused. Finally, I shook my head slightly, then nodded, whispering, "Just wait a little longer. Once I pick up my sister, I'll take you guys to the new continent. Even if the outside world is flooded to the skies, I'll lay low for a year or 2. Otherwise, relying solely on me to carry the progress, humanity will collapse sooner or later. Only then will I have the time to do what I like, and only then will I have the right to speak of peace." Patting Oreo's head, I rolled out of bed and washed my face to wake up. Breakfast today was still incredibly lavish, enjoying the leftovers from yesterday's banquet. A bowl of rich goat noodle soup, 3 fragrant fried egg patties, 2 crispy baked flatbreads, a fresh cucumber, and finally, some Northeast specialty soybean paste. It was clear that the chefs of Hope Village knew this was the 4th to last meal before my departure. At the bottom of the noodle bowl, I found another perfectly fried heart-shaped egg. Everyone has their own way of expressing affection. And this was the farewell from the chefs here. A little bit of love dedicated to the one who had spread his wings to shelter them. While the one adult and 4 little ones slurped down breakfast, I also took the time to scroll through the game panel, checking the chat channels and the trading market. The regional chat was mostly people inviting each other to form groups, while the world chat had practically turned into a disaster prevention guide channel. Compared to yesterday, the impulsive folks had cooled down quite a bit, leaving only a few scattered voices. Practical, high-quality sharing posts gradually gained the upper hand, becoming the mainstream. In just one day, besides energy-absorbing glue, the world had invented a second disaster prevention structure, the safe room. This structure was built using a smart design and a special hardened wood from the wasteland. Its resistance to mixed damage wasn't very high, but when facing kinetic impact, its effectiveness was outstanding. Combined with energy-absorbing glue, these two structures complemented each other perfectly. If a solo player had the means to buy both, they could safely survive the first 15 minutes of the disaster. As for the large and medium shelters, they invented all sorts of factions. The earth-mounding faction, where everyone dug dirt to build surrounding walls. The tunneling faction, hiding deep underground to wait out the disaster. The escape faction, building pulley systems to drag ships into obstacle-free zones. Each plan was a spark of human ingenuity. Though different, they all clearly demonstrated humanity's will to fight against natural disasters, a powerful, positive energy source. While browsing, there were still occasional messages in the world chat thanking Godsu. I read every single word carefully, my heart feeling warm and my conviction stronger than ever. The effect of me drawing my sword and showing my face to all of humanity clearly far exceeded my expectations. If my hardcore fan base was only around 8 to 15 million yesterday, then after just one day of spreading, that number had surpassed the 40 million mark, and it was still growing at a breakneck pace. This feeling was exactly like how the foreign races constantly spammed "Old Demon Sue is dead" in their internal chat, brainwashing each other. Those repetitive, seemingly idiotic phrases, when chewed over and over for days, not only made hardcore fans more resolute, but also easily spawned a massive number of new believers. Finishing the last piece of cucumber dipped in paste, I took a quick spin through the trading market. Basic materials had dropped in price again, but right now everyone was worried about relocating and had nowhere to store things even if they hoarded them, so the market sentiment was extremely negative. Conversely, rare earth elements were slowly trending downwards, entering a price range where it was viable to start hoarding. These didn't take up much space and were easy to store, making them perfect for long-term reserves. I immediately messaged Shin, telling him to buy up a batch. At the same time, the new daily report was sent by the system. I got quite a bit done yesterday. Just showing my face and displaying my power to all of humanity rewarded me with 3,000 survival points. Hope Village also just completed a 10x profit surge, bringing in another 2,500 points. Adding up a few other miscellaneous gains, my total survival points rose to 24,000, just enough to make me sit down at my desk in satisfaction. Now it was time to check the pre-voyage gift brought back yesterday that I hadn't had time to look at. A fist-sized, cylindrical stone. Just glancing at the material, I could immediately guess that Chun probably picked it up near Iron Mountain, casually choosing a rock that looked nice. Unlike the wind statue I received from the Lion Man last time, this stone only emitted a faint glow, looking completely unmagical. But with my current upgrade system, I didn't care too much, directly calling the system to scan its attributes. A blue light flashed, and the info panel appeared before my eyes. Blessing Stone of the Lizardmen Tribe. The description stated this was a stone blessed by the High Priest of the Lizardmen Tribe. Due to the material and the limited duration of the blessing, the stone only contained a minuscule amount of energy. If unused and uncharged, the effect would automatically dissipate after 365 days, reverting to a normal stone. Restriction: untradeable. Function: divine power, blessing. When crushed at a shelter or large ship, it permanently adds a supernatural LV.0 buff from the lizard god. LV.0, immortal. Every day, the blessed object will automatically recover 0.01% of its durability. The effect can even influence its appearance. The evaluation section even included a mocking line. Many lizardmen have intentionally cut off body parts, hoping the blessing would help increase their size, but all failed. Do you want to be the next brave warrior? Hmm. Durability recovery, huh? I nodded slightly, feeling it wasn't bad. It was actually a pretty useful buff direction. Unlike the mermaid's water buff or the lineman's wind buff, this immortal buff was a passive skill. At first glance, it seemed pretty goofy, offering almost no help to the shelter at its current stage. But with my intuition, I smelled the massive potential behind it. Right now, the shelter only had 3 floors, with an area of less than 1,000 square meters. 0.01% recovery really was nothing. But what if it was upgraded to dozens of floors later, with an area reaching hundreds of thousands of square meters? At that point, 0.01% would become an absolutely terrifying number. Just wait a few days, and the structure could heal itself as good as new, requiring no manpower or repair materials. However, with its current LV.0 level, I decided to use this stone on the Hope, my flagship. If I was lucky enough to trigger another reverse evolution, combined with the Hope's inherent regeneration skill, this could very well become a brand new trump card in my hands. Only 2 things left today, I told myself. Move the cargo onto the ship and convene a meeting. Moving the cargo was simple. I just needed to notify the villagers. As for the meeting, I had to carefully calculate the number of lifeboats and how to distribute the weapons. Thinking of this, I took out the excellent grade lifeboat blueprint, an item obtained from my first entry into the secret trading realm. With just a crush, the game's crafting interface immediately updated with a new category, while all the memories of the crafting process were transmitted straight into my head. With my current skill level, excellent grade items were no longer a significant challenge. After mastering the entire process and confirming that all materials could be bought on the market, I immediately took action. I went to the warehouse to grab materials and started shopping. Spending only about 400 kilos of food, I gathered enough materials to craft 4 lifeboats. I messaged Hong Kong-chung, the man in charge of supplies, instructing him to carry out the cargo transfer according to plan. Then I returned to my workbench, focusing all my energy on crafting. It had been a long time since I got the automated crafting machine that I hadn't seriously made an item by hand like this. The first boat came out with slightly misaligned seams, so I decided to turn on the TV and rewatch a true master's technical tutorial video. For the remaining 3, I worked extremely carefully, making every detail flawless. Although it took over 4 hours, and by the time I looked up it was already noon, looking at the 4 uninflated, neatly folded lifeboats on the floor, my heart was filled with nothing but satisfaction. Storing the boats in my spatial inventory, I went to the safe room to prepare weapons and ammo. This time, when considering how much to leave for Hope Village, I didn't hesitate for long, directly choosing the maximum amount. 20 machine guns with 100,000 rounds of ammo, 30 rifles with 100,000 rounds, 60 handguns with 50,000 rounds. Added to that were various explosives, ranging from 1 kilo to 15 kilos. These weapons could still be retrieved after reaching the new continent. I had no intention of turning Hope Village into a fully armed militia to avoid putting management pressure on Chinchun. But with the villagers' current combat ability being practically zero, leaving these weapons would at least allow a few military veterans to train everyone to get used to combat. When they reached the new continent, if an incident occurred, they wouldn't fall into a state of complete paralysis. In this wasteland, every journey for an ordinary person could be a point of no return. Even though I had lived in the basin for less than 2 months, as I packed my things, I still strongly felt like I was arranging my final affairs. Carrying a heavy heart, I inventoried all the supplies, moved them into the Earth Tiger's cargo hold, and drove the upgraded vehicle to begin my final inspection tour of the territory before leaving. Outside the shelter doors, the energy trees had been chopped down and stored, leaving only bare stumps. After yesterday's rain, the grass grew lush and green, making the entire basin look like a vibrant meadow. From a distance, thanks to my sharp eyesight, I saw the villagers of Hope divided into groups, moving between Iron Mountain and the Hope. With the convenience of spatial storage, everyone chatted as they carried loads, bringing quite a bit of supplies with each trip. I drove the Earth Tiger up to the Hope and boarded for a preliminary inspection. Seeing the daily supplies warehouse almost full, I nodded in satisfaction. If these supplies were left on Iron Mountain, they would just sit there gathering dust. But once brought aboard, they became an incredibly precious reserve for the journey ahead. With the motto, "Food in hand, panic at bay," 40% of Hope Village's commercial profits were transferred directly onto the ship this time. Besides hard staples like flour and wheat, Hong Kongsheng also proactively exchanged a portion for other items like corn, beef, pork, seafood, fruits, snacks, soda, beer, and liquor. Even flashlights, lighters, Swiss Army knives, kitchenware, toiletries, and multi-tools were fully stocked. Many high-end items looted from the treasure chests of survivors were carefully sorted and neatly stacked in the ship's hold. Furthermore, for food that needed freezing, once the energy engine was activated for a day, the cold storage area would drop below zero, enough for long-term preservation. The villagers of Hope didn't live in luxury, but in their eyes, I fully deserved to enjoy it. And because they understood exactly what kind of person I was, no one worried that I would fall into hedonism or corruption. After praising Hong Kongsheng extensively, I left the ship and drove to the deep-sea shelter. This place was as desolate as before. The clay had collapsed and covered it, and weeds stubbornly sprouted from the cracks on the second floor. If you didn't know beforehand and looked closely, no one would think a LV.5 shelter was hidden here. I got out of the car, walked up the hill, and sat at the spot where I had buried Ma Gu. I pulled out a bottle of Matai. The entire ship only had 4 bottles, and even I only dared to drink it when entering the talisman world. Yet today, I didn't hesitate at all, opening the cap and pouring the entire bottle over the roof of the shelter deep underground. Brother Ma Gu, the Wasteland's ocean is coming. Your little brother Suimo has to take a step ahead this time, to see just how miraculous the outside world really is. Oh right, at the former Expeditionary Army base, I found a suspicious place. If I get the chance, I'll go check it out and help you find out where our brothers really went. Don't worry, my strength has far surpassed ordinary people now. I will definitely return safely. When that time comes, I'll take your shelter with me, so you can get a proper look at the new continent. The wine was gone, the bottle empty. The blades of grass below, watered by the precious liquor, swayed in the wind, as if Ma Gu was nodding at me, telling me not to worry about him and to boldly march forward. I smiled, stored the empty bottle in my inventory, and used a hoe to tidy up the seabed shelter's grave. Once done, I continued driving, beginning my farewell tour. The saltpeter mine, the place that brought technology into the era of firearms. The burned-down Lionmen base, where I unlocked my first blessing. The ancient ruins, where the Dongfeng god-slaying missile helped massively boost my combat power. The ruins of the old Zhuhua village, where I celebrated my first new year and harvested a massive amount of supplies. Every place, every location, every step of my growth. This afternoon, I revisited them all, like a farewell. It was also an affirmation to myself that the new journey had begun. At 6 p.m., after passing the spot where Oreo once lay in wait with explosives to blow up the dog pack, I turned the car around and drove back to the foot of Iron Mountain. Today was a very ordinary day, but an archway had been erected at the foot of the mountain. Red lanterns hung down, and colorful string lights lined both sides of the mountain path, although assembled from various odds and ends bought at the market. It made the entire mountain look vibrant and dazzling. At the peak, 4 high-power floodlights illuminated half the mountain as bright as day. I stopped the car at the foot of the mountain, walked up to the archway, and looked at the words on the banner. The left couplet read, "This voyage, though but a small step for Chief Su in conquering the wasteland." The right couplet, "is a giant leap for all the people of Hope Village toward happiness." The horizontal banner above bore 4 bright red characters, "Invincible in every battle." The phrasing wasn't perfectly polished, and the materials couldn't be called premium, but standing under that archway, I subconsciously thumped my chest lightly. There is no banquet in this world that doesn't end. No one wanted to leave, and no one wanted to say goodbye. I understood. Everyone didn't want today and tomorrow to become too sorrowful. They wanted me to leave with peace of mind, and they also wanted this penultimate night in the basin to be one where I could smile, be happy, and find a little peace. I accepted their heartfelt intentions. "Greetings, Chief Su." The 2 militiamen standing under the archway gave a military salute, then immediately rushed over with fanatical expressions. I smiled and nodded. Under their admiring gazes, I slowly walked through the archway and headed up. The mountain path that usually took only 4 or 5 minutes to climb. I walked very slowly today, as if wanting to engrave every inch of this land into my heart. My hands touched the cliff face that still bore the marks of mining. My feet stepped over the large stone platforms that the villagers and I had expanded. Those minor changes made me feel unusually reassured. Everything was getting better. Everything was moving forward in a healthy and correct direction. Since the day we arrived here, it seemed like everyone was being swept away by the great current of the times. But if you looked closely and thought deeply, you'd see that under the natural disasters, everyone was trying their best not to surrender to fate. Brother Sue, you're here? Everyone is present, and the stage is all set up. Let's head down. Iron Mountain was shaped like a truncated cone. Although I had made a separate courtyard at the peak, it was still quite cramped to hold over 100 people. So today, they chose a large stone platform on the back slope of the mountain to hold the gathering. Normally, this was a place for training and village meetings, and when war broke out, it would become a strategic sniping platform to prevent rear ambushes. Let's go. I nodded, then suddenly remembered something and patted Chun-Shin's shoulder. Oh right, have someone drive the Earth Tiger up from the foot of the mountain. The weapons I'm leaving for the village are in the trunk. Hand them over to someone reliable. Seeing that despite the smile in Chun-Shin's eyes, he couldn't hide a hint of reluctance, I kept my smile and walked straight ahead. Today, no one wanted to bring negative emotions here, and neither did I. I wanted to present my strongest, most positive image to the villagers, to the people waiting for me on this lonely mountain. Thanks to the dazzling string lights illuminating the path, the walk down to the slope was much faster. Very quickly, after a bend, the light flared up. 2 high-hanging floodlights illuminated the entire open space below, as bright as day. All the villagers of Hope were sitting neatly on self-made wooden chairs. Although there was still the low murmur of conversation, in the desolate night of the wasteland, this scene brought a sense of closeness and warmth. There was no longer any coldness or loneliness. In the civilized world before, I was a typical bachelor drifting through a major city. In Shanghai, like many others, I avoided meaningless social interactions. Most of the time, I closed myself off, living only with my own hobbies and plans. But when the world collapsed on this wasteland, after exactly 1 month of solitude, I began to love the liveliness. At the very least, seeing the 145 citizens of Hope sitting neatly there waiting for me, the smile on my lips became brighter than ever. In front of the villagers was a stage about a meter higher than the floor. The carpet laid on it was still the red cloth used for the ribbon-cutting ceremony of the Hope. On the stage was a row of meticulously handcrafted wooden tables and chairs. In the middle of the table, I clearly saw a nameplate with my exact name on it. Not bad, I said softly. Although our village is well off now, I still hope that wealth serves our lives, rather than being used for vanity. The treasure chests will eventually run dry, and every modern item we open is a precious prototype. Don't waste them. Chun-Shin nodded immediately. Yes, don't worry, Brother Sue. I understand this perfectly. The whole village knew I hated ostentation and extravagance, but I wasn't rigid either. For example, the dazzling string lights bought from the market, cobbled together from all sorts of things. I not only didn't object, but I also felt very happy. I looked to the right side of the stage. Pei Xiao, Hong Kong Chung, Chen Yi, Chi Xin. The pillars of the village were all present. The assembly hall also gradually quieted down because everyone knew I had arrived. Taking a deep breath, I stepped onto the designated aisle, heading toward the stage. Step by step, I walked very steadily. The eyes of everyone, including the management team, followed me without leaving for even a second. In this special moment, no one dared to look me straight in the face, nor did anyone dare to make direct eye contact. But that didn't stop the respect in every gaze directed at me. As the bright red stage drew closer, memories of the civilized era in my head began to overlap with the reality of the wasteland. Unlike my younger sister Su Chan, before going to college, I had lived in the ancient capital of Chang'an for 18 years. The times I got to step onto a red stage, aside from occasionally winning some student literature awards like My CEO Papa, were practically non-existent. Even at my college graduation, I was just an ordinary person sitting in the audience, watching the darlings of fate step onto the stage to show off. But today was different. Today, Sumo, the true main character, proudly stepped onto the stage, sat in the center seat, and clearly saw every face below. Anticipation, nervousness, and anxiety intertwined. If it were before, in a situation like this, I definitely would have dismantled the stage and sat on the same level as the villagers, so everyone wouldn't have to look up at me. On Earth, all men are created equal, but power is supreme, even when the apocalypse strikes. I once didn't want to become a dictator, didn't want to send the message that I hold the power of life and death over you. But things were different now. When I realized that only by showing enough strength and decisiveness would everyone truly feel secure, I changed. As soon as I sat down, the other managers also stepped onto the stage one by one, sitting evenly on both sides, pushing the atmosphere of the meeting to its climax. Chen Shun held the mic, his voice ringing out clearly. Today is February 22nd, year 1 of the Doomsday Calendar. Here, I am very honored to announce. The second All-Citizens Assembly of Hope Village officially begins. As soon as his words fell, applause erupted like thunder. Just hearing it, you could tell the villagers were incredibly excited. Today marks the 53rd day since we, people from Earth, from Huaxia, from all cities and corners, set foot on this apocalyptic wasteland. I know that before, you were chefs, office workers, laborers, students. But now, I believe everyone has gradually accepted a new identity. That is, being a part of Hope Village. Chen Shin paused for a beat. Right now, please give a round of applause for yourselves, for our shelter, and for our director. The applause rang out again, this time more uniform, louder, and much stronger. Clearly, the villagers' emotions had been completely ignited. Next, please welcome the head of supplies, Hong Kong-chung, to give the phase report. Compared to the honest, quiet man he used to be, Hong Kong-chung had grown a lot. Holding the mic, he wasn't awkward at all. He didn't dare to speak off the cuff, but the clear notes in his hand completely reassured everyone. Hello everyone, I am Hong Kong-chung. Today, I am very happy to stand here with all of you, and with the director, to report the results of this phase. I'm sure everyone clearly feels the changes in our lives. From the days of eating tree bark, digging up grass roots, and chewing dirt, to today, where we can eat white buns, pickled vegetables, and occasionally even meat. All of this is thanks to everyone's hard work. It's sweat, it's blood, it's effort, and it's a great achievement under the director's leadership. He took a deep breath, then stated the most important thing directly: food. After an incredibly miraculous operation yesterday, our current supplies are enough for the 145 people here to survive in the wasteland for 3 years and 7 months. The entire venue fell silent for a few seconds, then completely erupted. Some trembled, some couldn't stand steady, and fell off their chairs. The chaotic scene was no different from hearing they had won the lottery of a lifetime. In reality, factoring in base construction and upgrades, those supplies would only last about a year and a half at most. But that didn't stop the genuine excitement welling up from the bottom of the villagers' hearts. After that, Hong Kong-chung continued to report on each supply category in detail. It was both to keep the villagers informed and to report to me as I sat center stage. As if reading from a script, he spoke nonstop for over 10 minutes. Next, Chen Shun passed the mic to Chi Chin for the militia report. Currently, Hope Village has 18 official militiamen and 22 reserves, making a total of 40 people. Official militiamen are exempt from production labor. Their main duties are guarding Iron Rock Mountain, patrolling, and handling threats around the basin. The reserves train once a week on their days off, receiving instruction in combat skills and military tactics. What's worth mentioning is that despite sacrificing their days off, no one complained. In fact, they were thrilled, because no one understands better than them that in the apocalypse, strength is life. As for weapons, Hope Village currently has 4 handguns with 80 rounds of ammunition, 50 standard iron spears, 30 machetes, 5 standard crossbows, and a number of homemade traps. If a fight breaks out, while we can't compare to the large shelters, dealing with about 200 foreign races wouldn't be a problem at all. As for disaster prevention structures, after striking it rich, Hope Village didn't hold back. By tomorrow, the 3-story safe house on the mountain peak, reinforced with shock-absorbing glue, will be fully constructed. with 4 large drainage pipes. As long as they hide in the shelter cave, no matter how heavy the torrential rain is, it won't affect them. Chi-Chin's report concluded. The entire management team, each according to their duties, was coordinated by Chun-Shin to take the stage and speak one by one, section by section. Clear, methodical, and comprehensive. Not a single aspect of Hope Village was left out. Sitting center stage, I listened just like any ordinary villager, sometimes frowning, sometimes smiling. But overall, compared to the Zhuhua Village days, in just 20 short days, Hope Village has grown stronger by at least 100 times. When everyone finished their reports, a low buzz of chatter rose again as the villagers whispered among themselves. Without waiting for Chun-Shun to invite me, I took the mic myself. I pressed both hands down, and the entire crowd instantly fell dead silent. I'm guessing you're all bored to death after listening to reports for over an hour, right? The guys down there already said everything I was planning to say. I said, half joking. Down below, both the villagers and the management team burst into laughter. The atmosphere instantly lightened up. Everyone's a public speaker now. I won't drag this out. Bring the stuff up. Speeches are for the weak who need to sway people's hearts. I knew that right now, the villagers' emotions were already pushed to an unprecedented high. Looking at the male militiamen eagerly waiting in the shadows at the edge of the stage, I was confident they would do a great job. As soon as the words left my mouth, the militiamen stepped out one by one. With a wave of their hands in the air, weapons gleaming with a cold, deadly light appeared one after another. 20 Type 80 general-purpose machine guns stacked like dominoes, barrels pointing straight down. 30 M1 rifles, 60 K1 submachine guns, laid out on the floor like toys in a shop. Massive ammo crates were firmly secured and neatly lined up, making the stage floor creak under their weight. 2 deflated life rafts were placed on top of the crates. The gleaming steel captivated everyone's gaze. As if under a spell, the murmurs abruptly died out. Only the faint whistling of the wind in the cold wasteland night remained. All eyes were glued to the stage, fixated on these objects that symbolized death and survival. Everyone knew I would leave weapons behind before departing. But until they saw it with their own eyes, they were still anxious. Now, the promise was fulfilled, and the scale of it far exceeded their wildest imaginations. These things, after I leave, will all be left to the village. I paused for a beat. As for the rules of engagement, I only have one. My voice dropped lower. If they displease you, if they don't submit, shoot. If they don't surrender, shoot. I stared straight into the crowd. Whoever dares to infringe on our interests, whoever dares to challenge our position, I want you to use these very weapons to show them what it means when might makes right, and our word is absolute law. No flowery words, no poetic rhetoric. But the impact shook the entire venue. Seeing the villagers about to explode into cheers, I raised a hand to signal for quiet. I declare that from midnight tonight, all villagers are relieved of production duties. Until I return to pick you up, you will enter your first long vacation in the wasteland. During this time, aside from necessary guard shifts, I only have one demand. I paused. Learn how to fight more effectively. Learn how to advance our technology. Learn how to restore the glory of humanity. Learn how to build an impregnable shelter in the apocalypse. I looked at each face below. I hope that when I return, what I see is a completely new Hope Village. A more evolved version of all of you. With that said, I abruptly stood up. Without waiting for the applause, I quietly walked off the stage through the side exit. I didn't want to stay and bask in the praise. I wanted to leave the space for the villagers to scream, to cheer, to release their pent-up emotions. Behind me, only Chun-Shun reacted in time and chased after me. The others were still sitting there, stunned, unable to process the explosive amount of information I had just dropped. It wasn't until I returned to my starting point on the mountain peak that the assembly area below truly erupted. Cheers and laughter echoed across the mountainside. It felt like New Year's, but not quite. Even though I had descended the mountain, with my superhuman hearing, I could still catch snippets of their excited shouts echoing up. After assigning the final tasks to Chun-Shun and letting him leave, I deeply cherished my last night sleeping in this basin. Tomorrow morning, all movable supplies and equipment in the shelter would be transferred to the Hope. By noon, after finishing the final batch of energy water, the entire shelter would be sealed with level 8 steel and completely locked down. At that point, even I would have to expend a lot of effort to get back in, let alone anyone with malicious intent. Once the shelter was sealed, it meant the countdown for setting sail officially began. Come to think of it, my remaining time on this land was exactly 12 hours. Entering the password once more, I pulled up the level 3 alloy rolling door, revealing the somewhat cramped garage inside. Aside from the 2 tractors still left on Iron Rock Mountain, vehicles like the Earth Tiger, King Kong, and the Harvester were all neatly stored in the garage. After setting sail, these land vehicles would be temporarily useless, so it was best to leave them in the shelter. Even if they were submerged under the sea, there was nothing to worry about. Closing the iron door, I picked up a few tools that had fallen on the ground and put them back on the shelf. Then, I pushed open the heavy stone door and walked down the corridor. The second floor was still brightly lit. The large 300 kilowatt-hour generator was steadily producing power, and the rhythmic hum of the oil, while operating 24/7, echoed constantly. Those sounds didn't annoy me. On the contrary, they brought a sense of familiarity. The 1 adult and 4 little ones were still sitting in the cultivation room, gathered around the empty planting beds, studying intently. Seeing me walk in, they just looked up to greet me before burying their heads back in their books. The day of setting sail was near, and everyone clearly understood their responsibilities. Even more, the most mischievous one was sitting obediently and studying, which showed just how immense the pressure was. I didn't disturb them. I just gave a slight nod and took the stairs down to my living quarters. If Zhong Qingshu hadn't mentioned it yesterday, I wouldn't have noticed, but now that she did, this place really is barren. I touched the partitions I had built with my own hands, chuckling as I muttered to myself. It's like moving into an unfurnished house. Got absolutely nothing, yet I'm happy every single day. It was the last night, so there was no rush. I pulled up a chair, sat down, and started packing my things seriously. Hundreds of high-quality daily necessities bought previously definitely had to be brought onto the ship. All the ammunition, explosives, and artillery shells, not a single thing would be left behind. Any workbench that could be moved was definitely coming with me. Even the small laser processing machine, which required 300 disaster points to move, I didn't hesitate to spend the points on. Rebuilding that machine would be far more expensive. After days of gathering, the materials to upgrade the small and medium processing machines were finally complete. I just had to wait for the shelter to reach the required level to upgrade them immediately. As for the large equipment that couldn't be moved, like the smelting furnace that required too many materials and energy and would cost a massive amount of disaster points, I had to leave them behind. The oil well would also be shut down. Just like the energy water well, they would sit quietly, waiting for their master's return. Busy until midnight, I gathered all my belongings into sacks and stacked them neatly in the living room. I double-checked everything carefully, and only after confirming nothing was left behind did I clap my hands in satisfaction and head to the kitchen to boil water. Thanks to the Lionkin's wind power, the water boiled incredibly fast. As hot steam rose from the bathtub, I gently stepped in. That hits the spot. For a modern person, it's hard to imagine going 10 or 20 days without a shower. But for a minor lord in the wasteland, every time I got to soak like this felt like a rebirth, relaxing both body and mind. I pulled out an antique cassette player, a relic phased out since the civilized era, popped in a J-Cho tape, and hit play. The melodious music echoed throughout the 3rd floor of the shelter. Bathing while listening to music, by around 1 a.m., I changed into clean pajamas and comfortably laid down on my familiar bed. This bed, made on my very first day in the wasteland, could no longer bear my increasingly sturdy physique. Just tossing and turning made its forelegs creak. But that very creaking sound put me at ease. I quickly fell asleep, my steady breathing flowing from my stomach to my nose, then spreading throughout my body. Even though outside, 99% of people were scrambling to work until the very last minute before the disaster. Inside the shelter and on Iron Rock Mountain, 146 people slept peacefully and soundly. A dreamless night. At 7:30 a.m., my biological clock woke me up even earlier than the alarm. Unlike other days, I didn't jump out of bed immediately. Instead, I rolled over and slept in. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9:30. Even though my mind was completely awake, lying on this old bed, I clearly felt a kind of happiness rising exponentially. After all, being able to freely sleep in amidst the wasteland was already a luxury in itself. At exactly 10 o'clock, with my energy fully restored, I slowly sat up and chugged the bottle of energy water on my nightstand. The breakfast prepared by the chefs had been mostly devoured by the four little ones, but my portion was still kept warm in the insulated container. A bowl of Chinchuan minced meat noodles, a Guangzhou specialty. It was still incredibly fragrant. The noodles were long and even, the minced meat rich, and the red broth glistened with chili oil. The sour and spicy flavors were distinct, and the texture was perfectly chewy and crisp. This type of noodle doesn't get soggy even if left for a while, and it plays a vital role in the lives of Guangzhou people. From weddings, funerals, and festivals, to babies' 1-month celebrations, birthdays, and even bidding farewell to loved ones, it's present everywhere. Served with sweet and sour pickled garlic and smashed cucumbers grown by the villagers at the foot of the mountain. A chopstick of noodles, a bite of garlic, a bit of cucumber. Even after eating until I was 90% full, I still wasn't completely satisfied. Phew, eating in this shelter is just too good. Once I'm out at sea, I'll have to cook for myself again. I regretfully stacked the dishes in the sink, looked at the packed belongings waiting to be moved, and began the final transport runs. Opening the door, the Earth Tiger had already been brought back and parked out front. In the distance, quite a few villagers were taking advantage of the holiday to stroll around the basin, admiring the desolate scenery of the wasteland. But they all kept a distance of at least 500 meters from the shelter to ensure I had my privacy. On the first 2 trips, all the packed belongings were transferred to the ship. On the 3rd trip, the workbench and the small processing machine were moved into the 2nd floor meeting room. On the 4th and 5th trips, the remaining building materials were all loaded into the repair warehouse. When everything was done, it was exactly 12 noon, right on schedule. Since last night, the furnace had stopped producing artillery shells and switched to casting 200 millimeters thick steel plates. The garage now had the required amount, just waiting for me to execute the final sealing step. Did we bring everything? Are you sure we didn't miss anything? Seeing the 1 adult and 4 little ones shake their heads firmly, I didn't hide anything anymore. I didn't even bother shooing away the villagers strolling nearby or Connie standing next to me. I directly summoned the system. By now, I had long discovered that the system's green light was completely invisible to others. The entire attribute panel and upgrade panel appeared before my eyes, but to others, it was just thin air. Using the virtual reality game as a perfect excuse, my upgrading the shelter or encasing it in steel was easily believed by everyone to be an in-game power. The green light slowly flashed. The shelter system panel, which hadn't appeared in a long time, materialized before my eyes. Underground shelter, Su-Mo. The description stated this was a sturdy stone shelter that could keep me safe through various disasters. It advised continuing to upgrade it so it could become a reliable stronghold in the wasteland. The upgrade paths appeared, from iron shelter, reinforced concrete, and structuralized shelter, all the way to the high-level hidden energy shelter. It came with a vague evaluation. Continue upgrading, and perhaps you will discover more secrets. More secrets? I was a bit surprised, then shook my head with a faint smile. I'll definitely upgrade it, but there's no rush. Wait until I return from the sea. I'll definitely turn this place into the strongest fortress in the wasteland. Thinking this, I gently rubbed the wall that had shielded me for the past 2 months, recalling the villains who had lost their lives here, and then opened the specific upgrade interface. I selected the modification option and added a manual fee of 350 points. The steel plates lying on the ground began to move. Under the faint green light, each steel plate flew up, adhering tightly to the stone walls, quickly fusing into a single solid mass, as if they were naturally born that way. In the deeper levels, phantom-like steel phased through the earth and rock, completely covering the bottom of the shelter, completing the final sealing step. When the green light faded, the shelter officially entered a state of absolute lockdown. From now on, without my command, no one could enter. If I were to die out at sea, then one day, when future generations found this place, it would probably become the greatest treasure in their eyes. But now is not the time. I shook my head slightly, started the vehicle, and drove the little ones and Connie straight toward the Hope, whistling along the way. After loading the rest of the items onto the ship, I handed the vehicle over to the militia guards to drive back. Then, I took firm steps up the wooden gangway and returned to the Hope. At this point, all preparations were complete. Before the clock struck 12, I still had nearly 11 hours of prep time. I spent 2 hours with Moore and Connie applying energy-absorbing glue to the areas vulnerable to the rain. After that, I took out the pre-purchased safe house and patiently assembled it piece by piece. Even though the living quarters were fully sealed, I wasn't foolish enough to face the disaster head-on when I could use cheap and effective measures to weather it. At 4:50 p.m., all defensive preparations were complete. I went down to the engine room on the lowest deck and inspected every room from the bottom up, only stopping when the clock struck 6 p.m. I climbed straight up to the captain's cabin, which currently only had a hard bed and a few simple items. I took a few gulps of energy water to regain my strength, then set to work decorating the room. I laid out the new bedding handmade by the villagers, placed the old sofa brought from the shelter, and unfolded the final folding table. The captain's cabin finally had a bit of the warmth of home. Just as I was about to continue tidying up, the resounding beat of drums and gongs suddenly echoed from outside. Poking my head out to look, I couldn't help but shake my head slightly. Yesterday, from the management down to the commoners, everyone was trying to act tough, creating a cheerful farewell atmosphere. But when the actual moment of parting arrived, all their disguises crumbled. 2 large gongs crashed loudly. The entire village lined up at the base of the Hope, beating drums and chanting in rhythm. "Shelter Lord, we'll wait for your return. Shelter Lord, conquer the seas, unstoppable. Shelter Lord, in the wasteland, you are invincible." The chants sounded a bit cheesy, but standing on the 20-meter-high ship, I could still see people secretly wiping their tears, some tilting their heads up so their tears wouldn't fall. Completely different from the idle cheering scenes of the old world, the atmosphere right now was strangely sacred and moving. In my heart, only one emotion remained, burning passion. Leading the crowd were the chefs, carrying trays of food. They slowly walked up the ship, presenting the final meal for me before my departure. "Shelter Lord, this last meal is a bit simple. Please don't mind it. Inside are dumplings, hand-wrapped by everyone in the village. After you set sail, you must take care of yourself." The chef, not even 30 years old, choked up at this point. She burst into tears and ran down the ship. Clearly, the village's mutual agreement was that no one was allowed to cry today. She didn't want to break the rule, and she especially didn't want me to see her tears. Standing high up, I watched her back as she left the ship, then looked down at the tray of dumplings. The misshapen dumplings, no two looking alike. I looked back up at the crowd below, still chanting endlessly. I didn't know when, but the corners of my eyes stung, as if a speck of dust had just flown in. I had tried to avoid it all day, but in the end, I couldn't escape this moment of parting. Standing by the ship's railing, facing the crowd below, I gathered all my strength and shouted, "Go back. Everyone, live well. Wait for my return. Guard this basin for me. Don't let anyone else set foot in it. Use your fists to tell them that this place is the territory of Sioux God. It belongs to us." At the base of the ship, everyone seemed to be injected with newfound strength. They shouted in unison, "Shelter Lord, we'll wait for your return. The basin awaits your return." Clang. A resounding gong strike shook the heavens and the earth, as if ushering in a new era. Later, according to the records of future generations, it was on that very day that humanity in the apocalypse firmly took its first step toward the future. The villagers of Hope finally departed. After a few distant shouts, as if speaking to themselves, and having received my firm reassurance, they gradually disappeared into Iron Rock Mountain. When humanity's desire to survive had been reignited in just 2 short months, this little disaster was far from enough to break these tenacious people. As for the 2 remaining Lionkin mixed in the crowd, Connie suddenly let out a long howl, both sorrowful and liberated. That wordless roar contained so much. It was a farewell to her old self. It was also the end of her ties with the Lionkin tribe, the ones who birthed her, raised her, and ultimately abandoned her. It was an oath, and also a silent initiation rite Connie dedicated to me and Hope Village. After the storm ended, the villagers would trick those 2 Lionkin into drinking the poison I had prepared. It wouldn't kill them instantly, but it would put them into an eternal slumber, painlessly and gently leaving this world, returning to the lion god of their blind faith. Their deaths would trigger the tribe extermination rule in the ocean game, granting me the right to relocate terrain and structures within a 5-kilometer radius. Of course, regarding this matter, I neither nodded nor refused, considering it a way to preserve Connie's last shred of dignity. Let's go. Let's eat first. After eating, we'll rest a bit and prepare to face the incoming disaster. I stood by the railing, watching with Connie and more as everyone's backs grew smaller and finally disappeared. A soft voice broke the silence. "Shelter Lord, this time, will we succeed?" Connie didn't look at me. She just quietly gazed into the distance, where the Lionkin camp used to be, now just a desolate ruin. I paused, because I understood. She wasn't asking about tonight. She wasn't asking if the ship would hold up, nor if the villagers would survive to wait for my return. Connie was asking about the future, about god-tier items, about the sea god, about the war with the foreign races, about the endless disasters. After completely cutting ties with the Lionkin tribe, the only things Connie had left to rely on were Oreo, and I smiled. The cart will find its way when it reaches the mountain. Connie, if you spend your whole life fixated on the result, what's the fun in living? Sometimes, even if you don't get what you aimed for, who knows, you might gain something, even more precious. So, just focus on what's right in front of you. For example, in 15 hours, how are we going to slap the 5 great royal clans so hard their ears ring? How are we going to spread the divine teachings of the Oreo cult to all the foreign races? Seeing Connie's eyes shift from cloudy to shining bright again, I burst out laughing. Carrying the insulated food basket, I walked into the captain's cabin. There was no doubt about it. If a perfect leader was 100 points, then from my initial 30 or 40, after 2 months of tempering in the wasteland, I had truly leveled up. Hearing Connie's light footsteps chasing after me, I smirked slightly. The food basket looked small, but it was packed to the brim inside. The bottom tier had 3 plates of appetizers, mixed pig ears, braised broad beans, and half a kilo of sauced beef. Next to it was a bottle of traditional manhwa. Clearly, the villagers knew my habit of taking a few sips while eating all too well. As for the other 4 tiers, they were entirely filled with dumplings. At a glance, there had to be at least 300 of them. Here, come on, 1 tier for each of us. Eat up before they get cold and lose their flavor. Seeing more already drooling, I divided the portions and sat down, sharing our first meal in the captain's cabin with them. A bite of dumpling, a piece of beef, and a sip of liquor. While the world channel was drowning in chaos, with countless people so anxious they couldn't eat or drink, I, Sumo, the man who had simulated the entire event 3 times in the talisman world, was eating confidently and leisurely. Sitting on the sofa, looking out the ship's window, I ate while feeling that life still seemed pretty beautiful. Happy times fly by fast. When the manhwa bottle hit the bottom, the clock had just struck 7:20 p.m. There were exactly 4 hours and 40 minutes left before the disaster officially struck. Outside, the silver moon gradually dyed blood red. The evening glow was as crimson as a raging fire, and a chill began to roll in. The atmosphere was thick with the murderous intent of the impending massive storm. As the first mate of the Hope, Moore had proactively gone down to the lower deck to the main cannon, starting to familiarize himself with the operations using the manual I left behind. Second mate Oreo and third mate Connie were also in position. One guarded the bow, the other watched the stern, patrolling nonstop, just like a high-end security team. The 2 little sparks were very sensible. They quietly slipped down to the cultivation room on the lower deck and secretly started planting vegetables in the large planters. As the captain, seeing this scene, I couldn't help but feel my heart warm. After cleaning up the captain's cabin and locking the door carefully, I went down to the first floor, entered the bridge, activated Gong Gong, and continued handling the remaining tasks. Right now, there was no need for the base robots to harvest cotton or manufacture ammo anymore. There were 7 engineering robots on standby on the ship, but relying on just them to maintain the entire 80-meter-long vessel was still a bit of a stretch, not to mention they also had to assist in inspecting the main cannon. Therefore, I summoned 6 more basic macaque robots and decisively upgraded them all. At 610 points each, it totaled 3,660 points. The upgrade process was as familiar as ever. The outer shells melted away, and lifelike humanoid limbs appeared one after another. As if preloaded with data from the old batch, the 6 new robots could immediately get to work without needing retraining. If you're going to play, you might as well go all out. I went ahead and summoned 4 more special ops robots. At 480 points each, it totaled 1,920 points. Then I upgraded them all. Adding it up, I spent a total of 5,580 points. After today's reward, I had over 25,000 survival points. Now, I was left with exactly 20,200 points, tens of thousands more than I had anticipated. It was probably time to give the old, worn-out parts of the ship a little plastic surgery. The first thing that caught my eye was the 4 dilapidated cameras scavenged from the flea market. At night, the image was as blurry as a crayon drawing. Beyond 25 meters, faces looked like pixelated mosaics. A slight breeze would make them shake like they had Parkinson's, and occasionally, they'd lose signal and reboot on their own. I naturally had no intention of making do with this pile of junk. Leaving the control room, I went to the first spot, where I had already installed the only high-quality camera salvage from the shipyard that morning. For the remaining 3, with just a thought, the green light appeared, and the upgrade panel instantly opened. 360-degree HD, blind spot-free camera. Description: semiconductor image sensor device. Due to prolonged use in harsh conditions, internal components are severely damaged. Upgrade 1, night vision camera. Repairs faulty components, upgrades the lens, and increases resolution, background brightness, and night vision capabilities. Cost: 1,020 points. Upgrade 2, enhanced surveillance camera. Replaces components, lens, and mount. Expands field of view and increases signal stability. Cost: 1,880 points. Upgrade 3, Sky Eye. Major overhaul. Surveillance range up to 3 kilometers. Clear night vision up to 400 meters. Includes image analysis algorithms with superior clarity and detail. Cost: 2,750 points. Evaluation. Ask yourself, what guy wouldn't want a camera that can scan a QR code from 3 kilometers away? I chuckled. The system could even upgrade city surveillance cameras. With survival points in hand, you really can do whatever you want. In the civilized era, the tops of the city's tallest buildings were equipped with camera systems called Sky Eyes. Just a few were enough to monitor the entire city, completely leagues apart from civilian cameras. Now, with the system allowing an upgrade to the Sky Eye, I didn't hesitate at all and chose option 3 straight away. I threw in all the compatible materials I had, dragging the price of each down to 2,515 points. It couldn't be reduced any further. The 3 cameras cost a total of 7,545 points. Looking at my survival points drop to 12,665, I took a deep breath and quietly waited for the upgrade to finish. Compared to the old fist-sized cameras, the Sky Eye was almost as big as 2 basketballs. Dual lenses were mounted in parallel, using an internal microprocessor to merge the images into a single data stream, transmitting it straight to Gong for analysis. Although the resolution still lost to the high-end camera from the shipyard, its surveillance range absolutely crushed the 500-meter limit of the old junk. I installed the 3 Sky Eyes on the port, starboard, and stern of the ship, then returned to the bridge. I reviewed the entire preparation process while checking for any oversights. The hull was fine, protected by the safe house and energy-absorbing glue. Next up was just the radar. The floor hatches and the supplies inside were all firmly secured. The mechanical systems had been inspected since the afternoon, and the robots were doing a second pass. Besides, with the system's support, repairs were just a piece of cake. From the bottom of the ship to the deck, from the interior furnishings to the exterior steel plating, I didn't miss a single corner. On the surface, I looked like I was relaxing in the captain's cabin, but my Bluetooth earpiece was constantly receiving inspection signals from the engineering robot team. Once I was certain there were no more items requiring survival points, I excitedly typed a few commands on the keyboard. The radar on the ship's roof had now gathered all the surrounding data and sent it back to Gong. On the system's 3D model, the Hope and a 1-kilometer radius around it were recreated in painstaking detail. It was just past 8:30 p.m. I took out the ship piloting materials I had compiled and continued reviewing them. No matter how skilled a doctor is, they still have to review the patient's medical records before hitting the operating table. Every time I read through it, my ship piloting experience noticeably increased. While I buried my head in studying, time outside quietly slipped by. When Gong Gong announced there were exactly 10 minutes left before the disaster, I rolled my shoulders to stretch my muscles and stepped out of the bridge. In the distance, Hope Village's searchlights were turned up to the max. On the surface of Iron Rock Mountain, I could see it very clearly. Just like in the Talisman world, a massive structure was covering nearly half the mountainside. Before, I wasn't sure what it was, but now I understood. It was a safe house. A safe house large enough to envelop the entire mountainside. Gong Gong, give me a searchlight beam. Aim it at Iron Rock Mountain and flash it 3 times. As soon as the command was given, the port side light slowly rotated. An intensely bright beam with a scattering effect shone straight onto the rocky slope, flashing 3 times. On the opposite side, the villagers quickly turned their lights to respond, also flashing 3 times. Excellent. I smiled. After preparing for so long, it's finally time to test the results. Across a distance of over 2 kilometers, I could almost see the tense yet excited expressions of the villagers sitting in the cave. 5 minutes left. I brought the 1 adult and 4 little ones into the top-level bridge and locked the watertight doors tight. At that very moment, my entire body seemed to automatically activate combat mode. Slipway mechanisms, check complete. Rail mechanisms, check complete. Hope's entire electrical system, stable. Hope's mechanical systems, stable. Launch mode, primed and ready. Awaiting data transmission. Every one of my actions was as precise as a programmed sequence. Every button danced under my fingertips. There wasn't a single trace of a rookie left in me. Moore stood to the side, staring in awe. Connie couldn't hide the admiration in her eyes either. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Looking at the countdown timer displayed on the radar, my heart was strangely calm. No anxiety. No fear. Only when the first drops of rain battered against the hull did I open my eyes wide. 2 cold gleams shooting from my pupils. Eye of the Storm Defense Ring, initialize. Wind wall, activate. In the terrifying scene relayed by the monitors, where the storm brought hell crashing down, the 1 adult and 4 little ones held their breath, trembling as they watched my composed demeanor. 15 minutes passed. Unlike the Talisman world, this time the radar showed I had erected a full 21 wind walls to block the storm. 15:03, 17 walls remaining. 15:06, 12 walls remaining. 15:09, 6 walls remaining. 15:11, the disaster passed. 3 walls remaining. Is that it? Outside, the rain had completely stopped. The sky was calm, the sea tranquil. Even though the seatbelt was strapped tight, making my waist ache, I couldn't stop the corners of my mouth from curling up. This time, it was another perfectly executed flex. Collecting environmental data. Port side sea level, 2.28 meters. Starboard side, 2.19 meters. Hope's posture is absolutely stable. Engines switched to automatic water intake mode. Power source stable. No anomalies detected. Launch sequence has been automatically taken over. Greetings, Captain Suemo. You may rest. Gong Gong's 3 familiar notifications popped up one after another. The seatbelt that had been tightly strapping me down also automatically unbuckled. Only then did I let out a deep sigh of relief. I didn't rush to stand up, but instead reached out and opened my private messages, where 2 red dots were still flashing. There was no need to worry about Hope Village. With that monstrous disaster avoidance system, their survival rate was definitely over 99%. But in the distant north, at the tundra shelter, I couldn't intervene personally. Please be safe. You have to be safe. Muttering like a prayer, my hands trembled as I opened the messages. The first was from Chen Shun. It was just a simple okay emoji, but it was enough to say it all. Hope Village was safe and sound. The second message was from Shinku, brief but carrying unconcealed joy. Shinku, all citizens are safe. The ship has successfully launched. Everything is stable. Unlike the basin, the water level in the tundra rose incredibly fast. Fortunately, the tundra ship had a shallow draft and managed to break free from the strata and launch into the water in time. The 2 places I was most worried about had both safely survived the disaster. I practically leaped out of my chair, clenched my fist, and punched the air hard. What do you call surviving a disaster with 0 casualties? What do you call a perfect launch? This is exactly it. Total victory on both fronts. All the previous hardships finally had a perfect conclusion. Just 2 words, peace of mind. But the hope hadn't fully launched yet. After replying to the messages and confirming there were no more threats, I patiently sat and waited for the system to automatically complete the entire launch process. On the peak of Iron Rock Mountain, the villagers had also swarmed out of the shelter cave. They were using shovels to scoop away water while fighting over the village's only 2 pairs of binoculars. The first storm of the ocean era had been weathered. A complete success. Everyone believed the Hope would launch smoothly, but no one wanted to miss a once-in-a-lifetime event like this. Hey, don't push. You're going to push me off the mountain. Give me the binoculars. Let me see how far it is. Good Lord, the water's rising so fast. Over 3 meters in half an hour. If this were Earth, we'd be totally screwed. Thank God for the shelter, Lord. Otherwise, we'd be paddling out to sea on rafts right now. Look, it detonated. The scaffolding blew up. The Hope is sliding into the water. Water level, 3.28 meters. The rails began to slide. The Hope's hull tilted slightly backward, 3.69 meters. Gong Gong detonated the securing rig, blowing off all the shackles binding the ship to the land. The Hope slid backward down the pre-designed slope, then was temporarily halted by the final barrier. At this moment, the bow was raised over 25 degrees. The red and yellow flag fluttered wildly in the wind, shining brightly in the dark night. Thanks to monitoring the World Channel all this time, even the ordinary citizens of Hope Village had basic knowledge of ships. There was no more chaotic screaming, but everyone still held their breath as they watched. The water continued to rise. The ship is starting to float. Give it to me. I'll narrate it for you guys. Everyone gets a turn. Don't hog the binoculars. Inside the ship, I stared intently at the data panel. Every number was rapidly analyzed by my brain to determine if manual intervention was needed. Not because there was a malfunction, but because everything was going almost too smoothly. The terrain modification perfectly balanced the water levels on both sides of the ship. The ship's posture was as steady as if it were anchored. Just 20 more seconds. Once the water level hit 4.18 meters, the barrier would open. Data updated. Port side, 4.11 meters. Starboard side, 4.09 meters. Rails, okay. Data connection, okay. Securing detonation, okay. Barrier opening. Water entry posture calibration, complete. Water entry speed, complete. Hope is launching. Captain, please do not intervene. Everything was as perfect as a symphony. The barrier opened. In my heart, there was only one thought: we're good. It was even more perfect than the third simulation in the Talisman world. Before anyone could react, the Hope lurched backward. Heavy stern, light bow, causing the ship's nose to slice straight into the sea like a guillotine blade, sending sea spray shooting meters into the air. I had waited a very long time for this moment. Did we succeed? Connie asked from behind, her voice trembling. I nodded firmly. We succeeded. One sentence. For Connie, for the 4 little ones, for myself, for this desolate wasteland, and for every drop of sweat shed over the past days. Moore jumped up and started doing a bizarre belly dance, howling as he danced. Oreo paced back and forth in excitement, while the 2 little sparks ran in circles like they were playing at a water park. I walked to the bridge door and unlatched the watertight seal, letting a gust of salty sea breeze rush straight into my face. Smells great. The salty scent of the sea, the cold scent of steel, the scent of freedom. This was no longer a Talisman world simulation. This was the real world. A real journey. The future steadily approaching. Looking at the flashing searchlights from Iron Rock Mountain, I didn't flash back. I just gave a soft command through my earpiece. Gong Gong, increase power. The engines at the bottom of the ship instantly roared to life. Power surged into the massive propellers. The Hope accelerated, its bow turning toward a very clear direction, Iron Rock Mountain. With the homeland in my heart, returning to repay the debt, the journey officially begins. On the peak of Iron Rock Mountain, the villagers of Hope also realized the Hope was moving. Cheering excitedly, they hurriedly rushed down the mountainside. Everyone knew I was approaching. and they knew even better that this parting could mean dozens or even hundreds of days before we met again. 2 kilometers wasn't far. In the blink of an eye, even without speeding up, the Hope glided near the foot of the mountain. To avoid a collision, I kept a safe distance of 60 meters and didn't pull in too close. But under the searchlights, I could still clearly see the joyous expressions on everyone's faces on the slope. "Hey everyone, go back. Don't worry, I'll come back to get you. We're in no rush." Even with the loudspeaker, I still shouted across the distance. It sounded a bit silly, but that very silliness touched people to the bottom of their hearts. Especially seeing Chun-Shin standing at the front, waving high a flag with the word Hope printed on one side, and the character Sue on the back. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I stepped out to the bow and raised the Hope's red and yellow flag high. "Everyone, take care of yourselves. Wait for my return. Shelter Lord, take care. We'll wait for you." After the ceremonial shouts, the entire village waved goodbye in unison. Standing on the deck, I responded with a crisp military salute, then turned and headed back to the bridge. Partings? I've seen my fair share. But this time, no one shed a tear, not even me. Because everyone clearly understood that this was only a temporary farewell. The thing providing that peace of mind was none other than the overwhelming power of the Hope. Gong Gong, initiate navigation point 1. Full speed ahead. Maximize fire control radar to a 50-kilometer radius. During the voyage, avoid all biological entities we might encounter. Ensure absolute stealth. Navigation point 1 was located about 250 kilometers away from the regular foreign race army of over 14,000 troops. But it was exactly 100 kilometers away from the ragtag army of over 5,500. I chose this point not because I was afraid of a fight, but because I wanted to swallow the entire foreign race army whole this time. If I showed off the main cannon right from the start, after wiping out those 14,000, the rest of the bugs would scatter and run. Even if I used recon drones to chase them down, it wouldn't be worth the effort. So for this first wave, I had to play weak. I looked at my handwritten plan to catch them all in one fell swoop, which was densely packed with the foreign race's movement times, assembly points, and optimal interception angles. Like a true old fox, I chuckled to myself, not caring in the slightest about my reputation as humanity's strongest. Pride? Face. Are those things as tasty as 5,000 treasure chests? The foreign races won't kneel and surrender just because you look cool. If you want them to fear you, if you want them to hurt, 23,400 of them. Not a single one can be spared. Once Gong Gong fully took over the autopilot and all systems were stable, I left the bridge and returned to the captain's cabin on the 3rd floor. Just like before, there was no live stream notification from the game, proving that the rules for scoring the top 10 had changed. Similar to the previous Blizzard, it didn't just evaluate the ship's strength, but also factored in other elements. I opened the double-door fridge, grabbed a can of Coke, sat down on the sofa, and watched the seascape glide by outside the window. Opening the game's control panel, I shrugged. Not getting on the leaderboard right away was fine. There were still dozens of days left. With a ship like the Hope, those rewards falling from the sky were just served on a silver platter. But speaking of live streams, what interested me the most was the foreign race's live stream. That's right. Thanks to Connie, a former royal acting as my inside man, I knew the foreign races could also start live streams when disasters struck. This was a golden opportunity to scout the enemy's capabilities. How could I pass it up? As soon as I activated the foreign race live stream, the light surrounding my body shifted from green to gold, the symbol of the foreign races. Before I could even enter the disaster relief livestream channel, a series of notifications popped up. Notification: congratulations to player golden-haired Lion King, Connie. Your ship's comfort index ranks first among the foreign races. Do you wish to make your ranking data public and start an online livestream? Notification: congratulations to player golden-haired Lion King, Connie. Your ship's firepower index ranks first among the foreign races. Do you wish to make your ranking public and livestream? Note: the livestream will not show the interior of the ship. The camera angle is top-down, rotating around the ship, with a display radius of 5 kilometers at sea. Maintaining a top 1 position for at least 1 day and surviving the disaster will reward you with an ocean upgrade experience pack. I smiled. The Coke can let out a soft hiss as I popped the tab. Far out at sea, The Great War had just begun. About 3 days ago, during a meal, Connie had briefly mentioned the foreign race's 2 previous disaster relief live streams. At the time, she used exactly one word to describe their ranking rules. Bizarre. During the first acid rain, humanity competed on durability. But the foreign races? They competed on land area. Whoever occupied more land won. That was enough for all sorts of absurdities to appear. The Dogkin built giant castles. The Lionkin hauled logs to expand their territory. Some inflated models. Others dragged their fences further out, all just to squeeze into the top 10. By the second blizzard, the criteria changed again. It was no longer about area or temperature, but kill count. Killing humans, killing foreign races, even killing teammates. It all counted for points. Back then, it was the white-robed Dogkin who skyrocketed into the top 10 by slaughtering his own tribe, drawing 95% of the foreign race viewership. It was also from that battle that my nickname, Old Demon Sue, began spreading wildly among the foreign races. Now, after reading the series of livestream ranking notifications for the third disaster, I chuckled. I finally understood Connie's "seen a ghost" expression that day. This game really reeks of racial discrimination. The rules this time seemed normal for humanity, but for the foreign races, it was nothing short of a deliberate handicap. Humanity has thousands of years of shipbuilding history, an unbroken civilization, so copying or modifying a decent ship is a piece of cake. But the foreign races have lived on land for generations. The concept of ships barely exists in their inherited memories, less than 1 in 1,000. So when they learned the rules of the ocean game, the first reaction of most foreign races wasn't to build ships, but to learn how to swim. Having a raft to rest on was already good enough. After resting, they'd jump back in the water and keep swimming, pushing the raft to save their arms. And if they managed to hijack a human ship, even better, no need to waste effort building one. So this time, the system forcing a live stream to compare ship stats was basically a punch straight to the face of all the foreign races. Don't have a ship? Then get off the leaderboard. No rewards for you. The new rule meant one thing. Anyone without a ship had better hurry up and build one. Later on, the top ranks would be a battle of the gods, impossible to squeeze into. And if the rules really were like this, then luring the foreign races over would be as easy as flipping my hand. I just needed to turn on the live stream and show all the foreign races that the golden-haired Lion King alone had a massive ship like this. Then, no matter how many of them there were, they'd break their necks rushing over. Add to that Connie's increasingly toxic trash-talking skills lately. Right when the whole world was about to lose their minds over the disaster, all it would take was a little provocation and poking, and the foreign races would definitely take the bait. Thinking of this, my whole body felt like it was struck by lightning. I sprang up from the chair and paced back and forth in the captain's cabin nonstop. My original plan to play weak actually had 2 massive loopholes. First, in just one night, how could Old Demon Sue manage to reach a position 500 kilometers away from the basin, and in the exact right direction? Second, was Old Demon Sue really out of trump cards, or was he just feigning weakness, waiting to strike back when cornered? If these 2 points were whispered to human traders by those idiotic foreign races like the Tigerkin, the consequences would be absolutely unpredictable. But now it was different. The one executing the plan was Connie, who says foreign races don't know how to build ships. We, the Divine Oreo clan, we, the Lionkin, will build one and live stream it for you all to see. We'll shove the ship right in your faces. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Excellent. The move to recruit Connie this time was truly the right call. Now let's see what kind of rotten fishing boats and decaying shrimp tubs those foreign races sail out to sea. Having thought through the entire plan and finding no loopholes, my mood instantly brightened. Following the chat panel, I clicked straight into the disaster relief livestream interface. Just like last time, the system opened up more livestream slots, 30 channels in total. The interface was no longer as empty as before. Below each room, the current viewer count was clearly displayed. Topping the chart right now was one of the 5 great royal clans, the Thunder Macaques, with 137,500 viewers. Second was the Shadow Moon Hound, also one of the 5 royal clans, with 84,600 viewers. It sounded far inferior to humanity, where each livestream channel could reach millions of viewers. But considering the reality of the wasteland world, where only the tribe leaders possessed cores, this number was already incredibly terrifying. Without bothering to glance at the live streams of the other riffraff, I jumped straight into the Thunder Macaque's live stream. The interface faded in, exactly like the human faction's live streams. A top-down view appeared. I adjusted the camera angle and began scanning the panoramic view of the pitch-black sea below. Because the observation range was limited to only 5 kilometers this time, a tenth of what it was before, a thin layer of black fog appeared at the edge of the map, obscuring the view. Notably, whenever the Thunder Macaque ship moved, that black fog moved with it, completely locking down any attempts to exploit loopholes or bugs. I didn't rush to switch to the streamer's perspective, but instead took a quick glance at the leaderboard on the right. The foreign race leaderboard this time was divided into 6 categories: firepower, defense, speed, comfort level, crew size, and ship size. Each category had a maximum of 100 points. Last time, my hope dominated 5 categories, excluding crew size, for a perfect total of 500 points. The Thunder Macaque currently wasn't doing too badly either. It ranked first in firepower, defense, and speed, top 8 in comfort, and top 10 in size. With a total score of 330, it was truly the pinnacle among the foreign races. Seeing that the Tigerkin, Boarkin, and Dragonkin were also watching the live stream, I shook my head slightly, then shifted my gaze down to the sea. As the most secretive of the 5 royal clans, the Thunder Macaque ship was just as silent. Painted entirely in dark gray, it looked just like a ghost in the night. Its estimated speed was at least 10 knots, maybe even faster. The hull was long and slender, sharp as a rhino's horn, easily slicing through the waves as it rode high on the sea. The rounded stern blended harmoniously, creating a seamless, streamlined curve. The narrow beam and minimal superstructure, combined with the elongated wind-cutting bow, allowed the ship to glide over the waves with extreme stability. After watching for a moment, I suddenly sat up straight. This ship looks way too familiar. That's right. This was the exact type of ship that once led the opium trade fleets in the old days, the Clipper ship. A class of ship famous for its extreme speed. The hull practically hugged the surface of the sea, running just as fast as early diesel ships. A foreign race like the Thunder Macaques actually managed to design something like this? Impressive. I was still secretly praising them when I switched to the streamer's perspective. A second later, the smile on my face vanished and my expression darkened. The camera angle clearly showed the Thunder Macaque King standing at the bow. He was only about 1.3 meters tall, looking like an adolescent chimpanzee. His forehead had only a few sparse silver hairs. At a glance, he looked no different from a prehistoric hominid that hadn't fully evolved. But those eyes were different. Scheming, cold, and absolutely not stupid. Compared to human elites, he was still lacking, but he definitely far surpassed ordinary people. He stood at the bow, watching the viewer count skyrocket, grinning from ear to ear as he talked nonstop. Hello to all my foreign race brothers. Welcome to the Thunder Macaque clan's livestream. Before you is our strongest ship, the Thunder. This is the crystallization of our entire clan's blood, sweat, and wisdom. Look at how it rides the waves. Freaking awesome, right? I officially invite all foreign races to form an alliance with the Thunder Macaque clan. Our coordinates are... I had to admit, this guy was a pro at talking. He controlled the flow of the live stream exceptionally well. But the thing that made my face as dark as a moonless night was terrifyingly simple. That ship. Why did it look so much like the Hope? To be fair, the Thunder Macaque King really did have a strong ability to speak and close deals. But the thing that truly ignited my murderous intent lay in another detail. Through the footage at the bow, I saw that there weren't just Thunder Macaques on that ship, but also many humans. Emaciated humans, skin and bones. Just a glance was enough to tell they hadn't had a full meal in months. And more importantly, they weren't collaborators, much less spies. If I had to use one word to describe them, it could only be slaves. That's right. All of them had their hands and feet bound by heavy iron chains. Behind them were Thunder Macaques holding whips, supervising and forcing them to labor. Their eyes were vacant, their expressions numb. No resistance, no emotion, no voice. They were no different from walking corpses. Even though the Thunder Macaque King was giving an impassioned speech right at the bow, Not a single one of them could even lift their heads. I see a friend named Azure Nine-Tailed Chicken just asked a very good question. They asked why there are humans working on our ship. I'll be honest, that question hits right on the money. Let me ask you all in return. If you want to hire a Trant, what do you have to pay? Let me tell you. Hiring a chickenkin for a day doesn't just cost 10 kilos of meat. You also have to provide 3 full meals, and even guarantee its safety. If it dies, you have to pay 500 kilos of meat in compensation. Compared to their efficiency, it's not expensive, true. But have you ever thought about hiring a human? That's right. I see someone answered correctly. We only need half a kilo of food a day to feed an incredibly productive laborer. And what's the most important part? You don't have to worry about a thing. You don't care if they live or die, if they're healthy or sick. Just toss them some leftovers, and they'll keep their heads down and work themselves to death. And when they die, just toss the body into the sea and you're done. They are the absolute perfect tools. The Thunder Macaque King grew more excited as he spoke, endlessly bragging about the great achievements of utilizing human labor. From farming to land clearing, processing, and even trading humans for meat in commercial deals. That wind-riding clipper ship was also the crystallization of the blood and sweat of these human slaves. Listen to my call, all of you. When the plan succeeds, we can kill the humans. But don't kill them all. Keep a batch. Keep them as slaves and force them to keep working. It increases our chances of surviving disasters and saves time and resources for other things. He spoke nonstop for half an hour, only stopping when his mouth went dry, spitting out a chewed-up twig. Below, the comment section became overwhelmingly agreeable. Every foreign race nodded in admiration. Some even proposed new ideas, trading meat for humans, pricing them based on health, and converting flesh to currency. Profitable and sustainable. Dozens of foreign races immediately voiced their agreement. The Thunder Macaque King nodded repeatedly, chiming in with a seemingly benevolent tone, but the corners of his mouth curled into a sinister smirk. No one knew that the one who proposed the idea was actually a vassal under the Thunder Macaque clan, and the majority of those agreeing were subordinates who had been bought off long ago. Dealing with foreign races whose IQs hovered around 80, as easy to lead by the nose as children, the Thunder Macaque knew the game all too well. Plant a seed, gradually brainwash them, and by the time they reached the continent, the Thunder Macaque clan would dominate the slave trade market. If any humans survived, he would secretly establish contact and traffic humans for profit. Those blockhead foreign races couldn't see through such a scheme. But for the Thunder Macaque, who was currently topping the foreign race leaderboard in the third disaster, everything was already in the palm of his hand. However, before he could continue speaking, in the comments section that was originally filled with praise, an incredibly eye-catching line of text suddenly appeared. Just 3 words. Not long, but it was the absolute essence of profanity. The moment he saw it, the Thunder Macaque choked, his face flushing red. I see one friend seems to disagree. Golden-haired Lion King. It seems they have some doubts. Let's take a look together, shall we? In the control room, Connie lightly licked the fur on her claws. She wasn't the least bit afraid of facing a royal clan. On the contrary, she was fired up. She looked at me. Shelter Lord, this Thunder Macaque King doesn't know how high the sky is or how thick the earth is. He's demanding a direct video call with me. What now? Reject it and keep flaming him in the chat, or turn on the cam and curse him out to his face. 2 days ago, Connie had pissed off 3 of the 5 great royal clans in a row, the Dragonkin, Tigerkin, and Boarkin. Especially the Dragonkin, who got cursed out so badly he couldn't even get a word in edgewise. She even threw in a solemn promise in the chat. If the plan failed, she would chop off the Tigerkin's head to appease the anger of her foreign race brothers. With a combat power of 1.8 up to semi-armored, everyone thought it was just high-level figures having a war of words. But Connie only had a combat power of 3.2, yet she managed to ignite a massive flaming trend. Nearly 90% of the foreign races knew the name Golden-Haired Lion King by heart. The moment she appeared, her arrogant aura flooded the screen. So if the Thunder Macaque King claimed he didn't know who the Golden-Haired Lion King was, he was definitely lying. But he was smart. He didn't lower his status to type back, nor did he dare mute her for fear of looking like a coward. So he threw out a video call invite. taking one step back to advance 3 steps. A vicious move. But, Connie, connect me. You don't need to say anything this time. Let me do the talking. I'll show you what simple yet peak trash talking really looks like. Because Connie wasn't in the top 10 live streams yet, when the video connected, her side of the screen would be black. In this mode, spoken words would be automatically translated by the game into the foreign race's mother tongue, so there was no fear of being exposed. Seeing my confident look, Connie flashed a sinister smile and immediately hit accept. The livestream feed returned. On the screen, I saw the Thunder Macaque King's triumphant face. Normally, seeing a monkey grinning ear to ear in the middle of the night would give me the creeps. But right now, thinking about what was about to happen, I couldn't help but laugh. Oh my, if it isn't our golden-haired Lion King. Compared to 2 days ago, you seem pretty happy today, huh? Of course I'm happy. Out of you 5 royal clans, counting you, I've already met the 4th one. I thought you guys would be a bit more decent, but who knew you're even worse than that piece of trash, the Tigerkin. Seeing how useless you all are makes me very happy. Thinking about it, your skulls will soon be enough for the kids in my clan to use as soccer balls. One side was a black screen, the other was a crystal clear image. I only had to alter my voice slightly to say these words, and the Thunder Macaque King's face instantly turned pitch black. Even the viewers in the comment section could clearly see he was trying to suppress his rage. Golden-haired Lion King, don't push your luck. With your measly 3.2 combat power, you can't even make it onto the livestream leaderboard. You're all talk. Let's see if you have a chance to survive when you run into me out at sea. Oh wow, you pieces of trash really haven't improved one bit. Playing the same old tired card again. Listen closely. Last time, I heard your mother, that female monkey, spent the night in the Borkin's room, gifting you a massive green hat. You got so mad your internal injuries flared up and you dropped dead on the spot. Who knew the rumors were actually true? TSK. Out of pity for your mother dying early, I even prepared some custom-made burial clothes for you, planning to send them as a gift. But it's fine. In a few dozen days, when I run into you, those clothes will come in handy right away. Tempered by my past life on Earth, this kind of maximum damage trash talk without using a single swear word came to me as easily as breathing. On the other side, the Thunder Macaque King, who had never been cursed out to his face like this, had all the hair on his forehead stand on end after just one sentence. His hair bristled, and he was so furious that sparks of electricity crackled around him. You, what do you mean you? Do you think we're idiots? Trying to trick us into capturing humans? Based on what? How long have you 5 royal clans been secretly plotting to kill old Demon Sue? And the result? He's still alive and kicking. Oh, you talk a big game. Telling us to go capture humans. When old Demon Sue comes back for revenge, are you going to step up and take the hit for us? Thunder Macaque King, who do you think you're fooling? Do you think everyone is as stupid as your lackeys? Old Demon Sue, the eternal pain of the 5 great royal clans. With this crowd, if you want your trash talk to be effective, you have to stab right where it hurts. No need to compare combat power. I delivered a direct critical strike, leaving the Thunder Macaque King completely speechless, unable to utter a single word. In the comments section, the foreign races watching the live stream started turning their brains on, as if someone had just reawakened their ability to think. That's right. The golden-haired Lion King is spot on. You monkeys might not be afraid of old Demon Sue, but we are. When he strikes back later, we're the ones who will die, not you royal clans. Only an idiot would listen to you. As long as old Demon Sue is alive, these temptations are just a joke. The golden-haired Lion King is the true voice of the common foreign races. Who cares what the royal clans say? We're following him. You guys mock the golden-haired Lion King for being weak, but clan history clearly states the Lion King used to be a royal clan. Don't be stupid. The foreign races might not be overly smart, but that didn't mean they couldn't reason. Once someone clearly exposed the truth, the whole crowd immediately connected the logical dots and saw the trap hidden behind it for themselves. Seeing the alliance's momentum rising, and right while the Thunder Macaque King was still recovering, I chuckled inwardly and unleashed my final move. A move that would make him feel like he was seeing the light of hope. You look down on me for being weak, right? Tomorrow, once I get my ship, I'll show you all what true power is. When that time comes, I'll turn you 5 great royal clans into the laughingstock of the entire foreign race world. Oh, relying on that 3.2 combat power of yours. Truly a piece of trash with a big mouth. Hearing me expose my own weakness, the Thunder Macaque King finally regained some of his composure and hastily fired back. Don't screech like a monkey in heat. Listen closely. Tomorrow, at exactly 4 p.m., our clan leader, the golden-haired Lion King, will start a live stream. We'll show all 5 of you royal clans what the pinnacle of strength looks like. Having said that, I didn't bother waiting for his reaction. I immediately unleashed the most lethal move in any online flame war, leaving the room. Just like those 1v1 trash-talking matches in MOBA games. Running your mouth and then instantly logging off maximizes the frustration effect, hitting even harder than the words themselves. If you run into someone hot-tempered, I guarantee they'll be so salty they'll try every way to add you as a friend just to keep cursing at you. Meanwhile, you just pretend you didn't see or hear anything, treating the opponent like a rock. It's that simple, but the effect lasts all day. The Thunder Macaque King was currently falling right into that state. When the golden-haired Lion King decisively exited the video channel, casually delivering such a clean slap to his face, his consciousness was yanked back to reality. He immediately realized that the one who just cursed him out wasn't the real golden-haired Lion King, but a subordinate Lionkin who was even more arrogant than the boss, cursing him straight to his face without leaving a shred of dignity. At this point, despite always claiming to be mild-mannered and polite, the Thunder Macaque King truly went insane. And right as he was howling and flailing his arms in the live stream, the common foreign races immediately slapped the exact same label on him as the previous 3 royal clans. Useless. Only knows how to throw a tantrum. I didn't bother watching any further. Having achieved my goal, I leisurely browsed through the other livestream channels before disconnecting from the core system. Aside from the Thunder Macaque King's incredibly fast clipper ship, the majority of the other foreign races' ships were only on par with humanity's cutter ships. The number 2 foreign race, the Shadow Moonhound, only had a silver-tier ship. The rest were mostly low-level bronze-tier ships. It wasn't that the foreign races didn't covet humanity's high-level strategic weapon, the galleon. It was just that the technology was too advanced, far beyond their comprehension. Furthermore, the blueprints for the galleon were strictly controlled. Every individual was recorded and monitored. If someone dared to sell cutter ship blueprints, authorities might turn a blind eye. But anyone who dared to sell the blueprints for a galleon, a weapon of survival, would absolutely not be forgiven. At best, they'd be labeled a race traitor and exposed on the World Channel for everyone to spit on. At worst, they'd be put on a kill list. Kill on sight, no negotiations. With that kind of pressure, even if the foreign races offered sky-high prices, no one dared to touch it. Shelter Lord, that was a truly masterful move. The Thunder Macaque King just sent a friend request. Should I accept it? Having participated in my practical trash-talking masterclass, Connie felt like her IQ had just chugged a whole barrel of energy drinks, skyrocketing several levels after just a few moves. Don't accept it, but don't reject it either. Just leave it hanging. Tomorrow at exactly 4 p.m., I'll have you add him back. When the time comes, listen carefully to my instructions. Compared to me, someone who had rolled through life and death battles of wits, even if Connie had unlocked her foreign race limits, she was still a bit green when it came to scheming. Hearing this, she nodded thoughtfully and left the control room. I was left alone in the vast space. Unlike my initial fury when watching the Thunder Macaque King's livestream, right now I only felt absolute exhilaration. These royal clans definitely held many secrets of the Deadlands. Whether for humanity or for myself, I had to find a way to wipe them all out in one fell swoop. As for the common foreign races, I could crush them and then subjugate them. But as for those 5 great royal clans, they were nothing but a bunch of stubborn beasts. Spare no one.